Meeting to order for the City of Saratoga Springs, Tuesday, August 19th, 2025 at 6 o'clock p.m. Present tonight, I have Councilwoman Barton, Councilman McComber, Councilman Wilden, Councilman Carn, and Councilman Wadman, so we do have a quorum. This evening, I've asked Councilman Carn to lead us in our invocation, then Councilman McComber will lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance.
Our Father in heaven, we are grateful to be gathered here as a civic organization to review plans and for the city of Saratoga Springs. Father, we're grateful for the opportunity we have to be engaged in these opportunities, and we ask that we will be have thy guidance as we make decisions that will affect our residents today and in the future. Father, we ask that we will have discernment as we do so, and do so in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Everyone, please join me and repeat the Pledge of Allegiance with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Where is everybody?
Okay. We have an oath of office tonight. Chief.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. In the last few days, we've become once again keenly aware of hazards of being a police officer, so we're grateful for those individuals that step forward to do it. Tonight, I'd like to introduce our newest officer, Tyler Milner. And Mayor, if you want to to the front, we'll swear him in. We'll probably.
Please raise your right arm and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Tyler Milner,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and that I will discharge the duties of my office
and that I will discharge the duties of my office
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
Welcome.
So we also have a commissioning certificate that we'll be presenting to Officer Milner. This is also from you, Mayor. Saratoga Springs Police Department Certificate of Commission as a Police Officer. The Chief of Police of the Saratoga Springs Police Department has reposed special trust and confidence in the loyalty, valor, fidelity, and abilities of Tyler Milner. In view of these qualities and his demonstrated potential for this responsibility, he's appointed as a police officer effective July 21st, 2025. Given under our hands the 21st day of July 2025 in the city of Saratoga Springs, Utah. Signed, Jim Miller, Mayor, and Andrew Burton, Chief of Police.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just set this here for a minute. So finally, we have Tyler's wife, Jessica, is going to come up and pin the badge, and she's looking for a way to get it into the chest, no, into his shirt. Tyler and Jessica have 3 daughters that are here, and Jessica's parents are here as well. So supportive family for a new police officer.
Thank you all very much. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
And we'll just be excused for a minute, Mayor, if that's okay to go take
What was
some-
that?
If it's okay, we're going to excuse our group.
Okay. There was a question, Chief, if maybe for the recent fallen officer, if you would lead us in a moment of silence for just a moment.
Sure, we'd love to have a moment of silence for those officers and their families. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you. We have public input. Time has been set aside for the public to express ideas, concerns, or subject matter not listed on the agenda. We do not have any public hearings tonight. Please be respectful in your comments. Please avoid repetitive comments. Our comments are limited to 3 minutes. There's a total of 15 minutes set aside for public comment. Please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Is anybody here for public input?
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. My name is Rob Taylor, and I'm a resident of Saratoga Springs. I know there's an item on the agenda tonight concerning fees, but I'd like to speak for a moment about those where there's no public comment during that business item. I would like to talk specifically about the options that are being presented about Saturday burials. I want to begin by saying that I appreciate and understand the city's concerns regarding overtime cost and staffing challenges on weekends and holidays. It's reasonable for the city to want to recover these costs. However, the proposed charges that would double the weekday rate for any Saturday interment are is excessive and places, I believe, an undue burden upon grieving families. The alternate option given is to ban these services on Saturday altogether. That's even more concerning to me. For many families, a Saturday or a holiday funeral is not a luxury. It is a necessity. It allows family and friends who work or live out of town to travel and pay their respects without having to take unpaid time off or miss the service entirely. Furthermore, some religious and cultural traditions necessitate timely burials that don't always fall neatly between Monday and Friday and on holidays. As a compassionate city, we should accommodate these profound needs. When I look at our neighboring communities, the proposed fee for a Saturday interment is a stark outlier. Cities like Eagle Mountain, Lehigh, Pleasant Grove, and American Fork all offer weekend and holiday interments. Their additional fee for a Saturday service has a median cost of $325 on top of the regular cost for interment. For a holiday, the interment median price is $400 on top of the regular price. Our city doubles that in this proposal, the median rate for our neighbors for a Saturday interment, and it feels less like a cost recovery and more like a penalty for families experience a loss at an inconvenient time. I urge the council to really look closely at these two options presented by staff, and I would ask that you consider directing staff to go back, take a look at what's going on in the other cities. They probably already have, but to look at what's fair and reasonable for Saturday interments. And I would highly recommend that the City Council include a reasonable rate for holiday interments. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, and neighbors. My name is Jason Holker, and I have lived in Saratoga Springs for just over a year. My family and I moved here from out of state because we wanted to settle into what we believed would be our forever home, a community built on shared values, safety, and respect for the rules that make neighborhoods thrive. Unfortunately, in my neighborhood of High Ridge, many residents are not following the city code regarding ADUs and IADUs. These units are explicitly prohibited when lots under 6,000 square feet, yet they continue to appear. As a result, we are facing renters who disregard neighborhood standards, vehicles parked up and down the roads, and in some cases, even theft. Some homeowners are even going further by renting out both the top and bottom levels of their homes while not living in the homes themselves. This turns these single-family homes into de facto multifamily rental units, something that our city code, strictly prohibits. Recently, some of our neighbors did receive non-compliance notices, which seemed like a step in the right direction. But troublingly, at least one resident called into the city to seek loopholes, and a compliance officer provided them. That loophole was then shared with other homeowners. This undermines trust in the process. If the city itself is unwilling to enforce the code as written, then we are left in a lawless environment. And if that happens, we'll have no other choice but to seek other remedies, something that we don't want to do. I want to stress, I do not want to become confrontational. I love Saratoga Springs. I want to stay here, but enforcement of our city's code is not optional. It is the city's duty. When rules are ignored and enforcement is uneven, the fabric of our neighborhoods begins to unravel. If this problem is not remedied, I and others will seek additional avenues, whether it be through petitions, social media, or news outlets, to make sure this issue is addressed. I'm standing here tonight because I want Saratoga Springs to remain the place that I believed it was when I moved here, a safe, orderly, family-focused community where residents and city leaders alike respect the rules. Thank you for your time and taking this concern seriously.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Sean Robison. You've seen me before. I'm from 509 South Schoolhouse Road in Saratoga Springs. Just bringing to light again, and I saw it was on the agenda finally to talk about the public road study for the crosswalk between Patriot Park and Legacy Farms. I decided to bring in today the full list of 600 signatures we've gathered so far in our efforts to bring awareness to this issue. And I'm glad to be back, and I'm trying to follow this as closely as possible to provide answers and feedback for all members of our community. But I mean, this isn't just a Legacy Farms issue. It's everybody traveling up and down that road. We really want and need desperately a safe crosswalk. So I just present this here for you guys, and we're looking forward to hearing more and seeing what next steps can be done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Brian Ryan. I've got two little simple things. One, the drinking fountain at the marina does not work. It has not worked for months and months. If we're able to resolve that, that would be great, because it is the only source of water, drinking water out there other than the vending machines. It technically works, but it just dribbles out. And then the second one is, I don't know if this is the right place to ask it or not, but I've seen bits and pieces of a secondary marina going to go on the north end of the lake. And then I'm super excited for that. I just have some concerns about the wildlife and stuff that live in the area. I don't know, did any of you guys see the baby owls that were there this spring? Yeah, and so I just want to make sure as that's going in, that wildlife, that's one of the best places to find wildlife here in Saratoga. I just want to make sure that that is protected. But I'm an avid fisherman, so I'm super excited for the marina, but I want to make sure that that stays safe and protected for that wildlife that makes our community as beautiful as it does. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Shelley Barch, 313 West Strawberry Place. I just wanted to come in and give to the mayor and council report on the signature gathering for the referendum that we attempted to do on term limits, just so that you have that report from those of us that worked on the signature gathering. So as you know, there were roughly 2,500 signatures needed. We actually had a goal of collecting 3,000. We actually only collected 1,500 signatures, and we had over 30 residents helping us gather. We, as we talked about it as signature gatherers, we think there are a couple of reasons for this, mostly being the shortened time frame that was put upon us by the county. Another part of that, so normally it's 45 days and we had 30 days. In addition, there was a holiday weekend included in that time frame, so unfortunately that hindered us a little bit as well. In addition, the time frame ended over a weekend when the county wasn't even in the office, and so there were 5 signature packets in addition to that that were rejected by them. So that was, another 250 signatures on top of that. In talking with the signature gatherers and many of the residents, everyone thought that term limits was a good idea. There might have been some disagreements on what those limits should be, but everybody thought that they were a good idea, and many of them thanked you as council members and as the mayor for enacting that ordinance here in Saratoga Springs. Many probably more than anything else said, can we do this on a state level now? Can we do this on a federal level now? Which of course, we then explained that that's not really where we have control as residents at this point. So I just want to thank again the city council for enacting those term limits and on behalf of the residents, and whether we try that again to get that on the ballot to reinforce the ordinance that you've already enacted or not, we'll see that in the future, but we wanted to thank you very much for that.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, I will close the public input. Reports from the council. Councilwoman Barton.
I just have a quick, not really a report, just like a comment. I had to write it down because I knew I wouldn't make it through it because I never do, because you guys all know I cried everything. But and Chief Burton had already said something a little bit about this, but I just wanted to take a minute to thank our police officers for the work they do. I knew it. Each and every day to keep our community safe. The recent tragedy in Tremont is a sobering reminder of the risks our officers face when they put on the uniform. On behalf of our city, I want to express my gratitude for your service, your sacrifice, and your commitment. We stand with you, we support you, and we thank you to all our police officers in our city. So I just wanted to say that. And again, I apologize for crying over everything, but we do. We love our officers, and we're so grateful for them and for what they do for our city to keep us safe. So thank you.
Anything else from the council? Okay, Mark, anything from administration?
I have a couple of quick items. We have two items. We wanted to give an update on the 400 South Crosswalk study that we've been looking at. And then Councilmember McComber met with me a couple weeks ago and asked for us to look at parking at Sunrise Meadows Park. And so we added that to the Dropbox tonight and wanted to just bring that to the council's attention as a follow-up item. So Jeremy, if you could go ahead and take those items.
Any preference on which one goes first? And I'll do the parking first. I'll keep it brief. We do realize that there was a trade-off when we had a widened Mountain View corridor. That was something that we self-funded, and that was a big lift. We did lose some of that parking on Mountain View corridor in front of the park. Recreation has made adjustments, so that is still being used for recreation, but I know there was some concern and interest about can we bring it back. So this is kind of a very, very rough and dirty. We estimate that you could have fit about 80, 90 cars between Rattler and Buffalo prior to the recent 5-lane project. Those obviously are now a travel lane. If we were to put in angled parking as this exhibit, we could gain roughly around 78 stalls. Again, until you get to the engineering, and that could change slightly. So that's almost gets us back to what we had before. If someone had parked all the way between Rattler and the park. And maybe even more than what we had before, because people frequently didn't go all the way to Rattler. Usually it was the front. So if the council is interested and directs us so, we can dive in deeper and start beginning to do more engineering and cost estimates back on actual hard cost, if that's something you're interested in. But this was at least to get the conversation going and see if that's the direction of the council.
Councilman McComber.
Appreciate this, and Mark, thanks for listening to this, because this is considered a regional park because it has a bathroom, has a playground, and we program this. Heston had informed us that he was no longer going to be able to program this for soccer, especially because there's nowhere for people to park. And so it was a real concern because, one, it's a great park for especially little kid soccer, and we don't have enough space really as a city. And so there's this, and then if this is successful, I even recommended potentially looking at the north side of Neptune Park. Because we have a lot of grass and mowing strips and things, and there's a lot of talk about not having those anyway. And so if this is really successful, because we never really have enough parking there too. I know that long-term, there's goals to move a lot of activities to Patriot Park, but Neptune Park is still a very popular park and will always be a popular park. So, but for sure here, to be able to get pretty much all the parking necessary, when we would go down to Rattler and stuff is when it was like a splash event.
Correct.
For soccer and stuff, it was really just the frontage of the park, and so I think we will be gaining with this almost all of the parking back, and we won't lose this park for programming. Thank you, Mayor.
Hey, Councilman Carn.
Just a question on what you've got reported here. It's 80, 90 cars along Mountain View that we've lost, right?
Correct. The potential, yeah.
Okay. And when you say we're gaining 78 parking spots by doing angled. That's not including any cars that are paralleled.
There's no math there. So that-
Today.
I'm just showing that you can fit 78 parking stalls. I'm not-
Okay.
I didn't do an analysis of what you can gain, because
So
point.
and that's my
you
point,
lose
where-
the on-street, the people who are parallel parking obviously can't do that. So it's not, I'm not saying it's a net gain of 78.
So do you know how many we can fit on that frontage, that curved frontage today?
I mean, I can do a rough count, but yeah, I mean, 1, 2, 3.
Mark, you got your map? You doing
I'm
it?
actually, I'll quickly do
What do we consider 10 feet per vehicle?
20-ish feet.
20-ish?
25, maybe
25
25
per
spots, give or
vehicle?
take, just doing a rough and dirty count. So yeah, you'd have to minus 25-ish stalls. to look
So
at
we
the-
gain about 50 total-ish.
Ish.
Okay.
But then we also are preventing people from parking in both sides parallel. It
Mm-hmm.
also is safer for pulling out, less bumper fender benders.
So ballpark, the park frontage is 776. So,
So about 50 instead of 78.
And I'd have to bring you back the cost, right? You have some fire hydrants to relocate, there's some grading.
So it's about
It drops off
38
pretty steep
cars?
there, so I don't know what the cost would be yet.
so that would be about 31 cars at, 20, 25 feet in there. So 30, yeah, so if it's 80 on Mountain View corridor and 30 there, we're still down, but it's a
Right.
way that we could get back some of that parking.
My only other question here, and I think it's a great idea. My concern is the slope. With that slope, are we gonna have to retain that?
You're either going to have to fill into the basin, or we're gonna have to retain it. So there's gonna be a cost, there's gonna be a trade-off, right? You can spend more and have less of a footprint, or you can have bigger footprint, but then, not build a retaining wall.
Okay.
And that's what I'm saying, if you direct me, I can bring you back that detail. This was just to kind of get the conversation going. I just didn't want to go down that road until we got a consensus, that that's the direction we want to go.
Councilman Wilden?
I'm supportive of moving forward and looking at this, because what will happen is if we don't do this, we're just gonna push more cars in front of homes in the neighborhood, which is a big problem everywhere.
Because they're both parking both sides.
Yeah, we'll have another, yep.
Does so rec has said they're gonna move programming. They'll use it, but less.
Are they stopping because of the parking?
Part of it.
Because part of it, yeah.
He's not gonna not go somewhere where there's a bathroom. It's like a
That's
dream
what I'm
spot for
saying,
him.
right? Like-
Well, we are bringing in
Honey
portables, or not portables, but, porta potties.
Porta potties.
And we're looking at Trident, and we're looking at, other parks throughout the city where that programming. So it's a change. It's definitely a change in programming.
Some of these neighborhoods are gonna love having all that traffic come into the.
So, Michael, that's a good question too. I think we talked about this. When we do these, do we go and public notice or ask these citizens what their thoughts are and maybe, do we do that?
We can if that's, I would say at this point it's maybe premature, but at some point in the process before we pull the trigger, is a good thought. I mean,
I think it'd be less of an effect than parking.
Exactly.
Kind of get an estimate.
really rough and dirty,
Yeah.
a few $1,000s, maybe 2 to
Okay.
5,000.
I say we get an
Yeah,
estimate. Get an estimate, and then.
What I
if
would
we-
do is I'd get you
we'll
back at
talk to the
least
neighborhood.
a general cost estimate of what it would cost. So if you said that, hey, we're gaining 50 stalls, then you could say, okay, this is costing us X amount per stall. And then you could direct me, okay, do we want to, so we could incremental this and either ultimately build it or decide whatever route you want to go.
I would say a survey result would never come out, we want more cars parked in front of our house, so. We'll save a couple $100 on that, it would be my,
Well, no, I was gonna joke, if you wanna do the survey, make sure you survey the other parks that you're gonna be moving all this traffic to,
Well,
because they definitely will.
That's a great point. I mean, every change we make will affect somewhere else. So we make someone happy, we make someone not
But this
happy.
has been programmed for so long.
Right.
It's the metaphor of squeezing a balloon. It's got to go somewhere, and,
Right.
But I
you
think
know,
it's parking's better than it has been. I mean, I know it's less cars, but in the fact that it's.
It's not.
It will be less programming,
So to go.
no matter what.
Michael, to your point, because and thanks to the city, we evaluated out in front side of Harvest Hills, right? And because at one time, we could only drive one direction. I see that being here too on both sides. And so we created a no parking zone, but now people are going into communities, which is, where they're going to go. So, yeah.
I think I got clear direction. Should we move on to the next topic?
Yep.
Okay. Next topic, which is the 400 South pedestrian crosswalk study. As you know, that was something you directed staff to look at a while ago. There was a lot of data that needed to be collected for that, both looking at traffic data, pedestrian count data. And the results are that the warrant, as of today, the warrant is like slightly below as far as what the MUTCD, the document, as far as requiring it. But there's certainly rationale for doing it if that's the council's direction per se, because, so I think during the peak hour, there were 17 pedestrians per the peak hour in that study, which was a score of 10 out of 30. So if you had hit 20, that would have hit the warrant. But that's just.
What was the dates on that?
And do we have a copy of this before?
This, I think, is in your packet. This whole thing is in your packet, yes.
It was separated.
It
was in there, but it was on.
That being said, it's pretty clear that if you were to redo the study, I mean, at some point, as growth occurs. So even if you were to delay this project and do it, I would assume that the warrant will be met eventually, even though we're right there.
School was in, there's gonna be
Right.
more.
And that being said, yeah, it's certainly a popular crossing. It's a unique location where generally mid-block crossings are undesirable because they're not per se safe or as safe as self-controlled. When you have a regional facility, but normally we would say if there was not a regional facility, if it was just a neighborhood to neighborhood, we would not per se feel that that's a good idea because there's no, but in cases where you have a clear regional destination, there's a lot more justification for that. And to really just to get to the point, to make a safe crossing, you can't just paint white lines, right? That actually would be dangerous because cars don't respect the white paint. Studies have shown that pedestrians then assume cars will stop when they don't. So we had a full-on analysis of what it would, how can we make that safe? And you have a variety of improvements, bulb outs, things like that. They're estimating it would cost about $160,000 worth of improvements to build what is essentially a safe crossing. And the primary improvement would be on the park side. We would bring that park strip closer to the road so that the crossing is shorter. Naked it down, we would have flashing lights at both sides and in the middle, and a variety of signage and painting, and then we'd have to add the ADA ramp at the south side. And the proposed location that they feel would be the best would be actually where it lines up right with the main entrance. So right where the main entrance, where you have the baseball bat, there already is kind of a main path that leads you towards the parking area. That was deemed to be the safest place to cross based on where the improvements could be, based on where there's the least amount of conflicts with cars entering and exiting the park. So that again is a conceptual cost estimate. As if we got into the actual engineering, that could change slightly, but that's what it is. Which in a nutshell, it technically is not quite warranted. It's right on the cusp, but there's a lot of other non-metrics, non-quantitative metrics that would, give you good reason to make this a good location for one. However, we need to make it safe, as was brought up, right? We don't want just a crossing, we want a safe crossing, and that is going to require some infrastructure to make sure that's actually a safe place to cross.
Okay. Councilman Carn?
Jeremy, so I'm looking at I did find it, I apologize. On page 7 of that report, where the orange dot is, do you see that?
On page,
7, it's a picture of the park.
hold on.
It's the accident report.
Of the photos, appendix.
It's just a picture of the park, there's an orange dot there where the driveway is.
Oh, I
So are
see.
you suggesting that the crossing, are they suggesting that the crossing be where the sidewalk comes out to the street?
Yeah, they're suggesting that the orange dot is a location where there is a history. So part of doing the study is to pull the records on it. Is there a history of accidents in this location, right? Because that can help
Okay,
justify that. And they were saying that orange dot where there was an access is where there is a history of accidents.
right, but their recommended crossing is where
Yeah, so if you go to the
directly
last,
adjacent to the, where the bats are.
It goes straight into the.
yeah, I apologize. If you go to the last page, they have an illustration of the proposed improvements.
Got it. Oh, I found it. Okay.
And that's where they're proposing, that would be the safest location.
And that's 160,000.
Yeah, they have a cost estimate there, about 160,000, so you're looking at about 30,000 in surveying, design.
What was the date on that?
Miscellaneous, soft costs, we call them, and about 90,000 in hard costs. You got, again, flashing beacons, you've got that bulb out from the north to shorten that distance that cars are crossing to make sure cars can't go around to the right.
I'm assuming getting power there's a major expense.
Actually, this recommends solar.
Oh,
This would be
okay.
a solar, they call them rapid rectangular flashing beacons. They come in solar.
So this study was on July 10th, which we're not in school, and I'm concerned that it's underestimating the amount of use on a regular basis. What kind of programming do we have at this park in the middle of July?
That's a good question. And how many of those people programming are parking?
Yeah, baseball's over, like fall softball's not started,
Just,
Usually we'll have rentals, so softball tournaments, baseball tournaments, things like
but not our normal, yeah, pickleball's going on all the time.
qualitatively,
Just daytime park use.
Right.
So to your point, it's on the cusp. If the council feels like it's warranted, we can move forward. It really comes down to, do you do it now, or do we do it when the next study's done, or do we do it in the future? Even if we were to jump on it tomorrow, it's probably not finished until next spring.
So, Mark, if we did move ahead with this, this would require a budget amendment of some kind,
Absolutely, yes.
Something to consider though is the library will open, which will draw more.
which will draw more traffic. Yep.
Again, I mean, it's kind of that,
just
do we
to,
want to do it now, or do we want to do it later?
just a few thoughts, right? So people who don't live in the Legacy Farms are typically going to park at the park. So I would assume, I'm assuming, I don't obviously have hard data. The majority of the people who are crossing this street are residents who live in Legacy Farms. There may be a small number of people who, for whatever reason, are walking, who don't live there, but
I can tell you,
I
Jeremy,
agree.
that because my neighborhood, SSD, is connected to Legacy Farms through a sidewalk, so a lot of
I should
the,
clarify, yeah, Legacy
Yeah.
Farms and residents south of Legacy.
yeah,
Sorry.
because those, they do access Legacy Farms through that sidewalk to the school, and I personally know a lot of people who access Patriot Park from my neighborhood through this route.
Right. Now, there is another crossing at Saratoga Road. So people who are going to the library may choose to walk, you may have some that choose to cross here, and you have some that may choose to walk to Saratoga Road and cross at the stop controlled, right, access. So the
I,
library could increase a few crossings here per se, but I think that was my point, was doing more studies to find us to get that threshold doesn't seem to be, we could wait 3 months or 6 months. You are going to get to that point where the warrant's met. You
So
don't
we-
need the warrant to be met to
we
make.
can't vote on this here, but I personally would like to see the budget amendment and this come back.
Yeah, I mean, well, I guess what we're looking for is you would direct us to remake the budget amendment. That would be the official vote.
We got a
Bring it back your next council
A
meeting.
few more comments too, when you're done, from Councilman McComber, then Councilman Wilden, and Councilwoman.
I just want, because there had residents here a lot asking about this. We have to follow a process. We can't just have someone say they want it and we
Yep.
just do it. And so this is the process.
Correct.
I personally think it's warranted probably, and we should do it. That's my thoughts.
Okay. Councilman McComber?
Yeah, so I agree. I think that July 10th is, the fact that it was on the cusp on July 10th says that it's warranted today. Like, in all intents and purposes, in my mind, it is warranted now. I would much rather be moving forward with this and doing this now than waiting a year and having a kid get bumped, or, I mean, heaven forbid, some kind of accident happens or whatever. I do want to make sure that we're including in the budget amendment, this is going to have a crossing guard, because it's too close to the school. And when other schools where we have a crosswalk like this, I really do think that we need to be budgeting for a second crossing guard here. Because yes, there will be one further west, but a lot of kids will be wanting to cross here. And I appreciate the Saratoga Springs Police Department. They were out in force today. I know they're doing different schools at different times, but they definitely were on top of 4th South. I think I just sat there, I was on a walk, I just sat there for 15 minutes and I saw 6 people get pulled over. in a 15, 20-minute period. I think they were giving a lot of warnings, which was I appreciative of them to do that, because I think that people weren't like going 60 miles an hour. They were going like 30, 35 when they should have been going 20. So I do appreciate the police officers using their discretion there. But absolutely, so in the budget, I would like to see with or without the crossing guard, and then obviously the council as a whole would have to decide whether they want to pay for that extra crossing guard. Since those in the audience maybe don't know, schools get to put a school wherever they want, and we don't have any say. Schools get to do wherever they think the safe walking routes are, and we don't have any say. But we are responsible for paying for all the crossing guards and the school safety officers. So I think that that is an interesting dynamic between cities and schools. And so just having that as a line item, I think will be very helpful.
That's really good context, and I didn't address that, which is if building this may trigger a warrant for a crossing guard. So if this becomes the school route, and then the warrants are met because this is not stop controlled, if it's the walking route for an elementary school, and it's used by, I think, and that's a lower warrant for school, I think it's 10 kids per hour, whatever, that would trigger a requirement for a crossing guard.
I promise you it will, because the kids will take the shortest distance possible.
Well,
I did that as a child.
So if I could, I just want to point out, and we're not disputing what you just said, because I just want to make sure we point out that if this does become a safe walking route, the current safe walking route has multiple, kind of directional things that keep the kids safe. If this becomes a secondary safe walking route, it could even require additional, beyond just this crossing guard, depending on how they're crossing and getting up to the school. So
Chris, there is a trail along
it's tricky, and we'll want to look at that, and I just want to make sure that we keep that up
crossing, we'll go there. and then
as
they'll
something
take
that
the
it may
river
trigger
sidewalk
more crossing.
and go into the neighborhood.
Yeah, which would be additional expenditures, but
So all the homes on the east side along the river, they can access and get there's about 75 to 100 homes.
Well,
And then as all the homes continue to go north into the north side of Pony Express, till they build another school, all those kids are going to be walking to.
Yeah.
And we'd need to work with the school to have them amend their safe walking routes and things of that nature. So that, again, that would be probably a conversation for next springish, summer.
And one more, sorry to drag this out, one more thing just to address Councilmember Carn's concern about being arbitrary had it not made the warrant. This was a score of 23, which is in that gray area. So had this scored less than 20, it would have said crosswalk not warranted. And had this scored less than 20, we would have told you, we don't recommend moving forward at this time. This scored 23. So what it says, what the MET says between 20 and 29, it's kind of like, maybe, use your judgment. And then above 30, it would have been like absolutely needed. So we were 23. So we are well in that threshold that we can say, we don't have to do this somewhere else and score less than 20 just because we did it here. Right? We're not setting a precedent of just doing it because it was asked for. This clearly was high enough that it's meeting that area where we can say, yes, there is justification for it.
Okay. Councilman Wilden?
Lots been said, agree with everything. Let's just move forward. The score would have been higher had the average not been 91 degrees that day. I looked it up. That's the reality, is people aren't walking when it's that hot. So score would have been higher, so let's just move forward through the process on it.
Councilwoman Barton?
I was going to say the same thing. As soon as I saw that was on the cusp, and it actually probably is higher than what that's even projecting, I'm go ahead for sure. So again, I don't need to repeat what everybody else has said, but let's absolutely do that.
Repeat it all anyway.
Sounds like we've got direction to get it ready and bring it back to the council.
Will do. And then just so you're aware, back on my department updates, we recently installed 18 park and trail signs throughout the city that have made it more clear about the rules and regulations, specifically the prohibition on electric motorcycles, Sarons, class 2, 3 e-bikes and things like that. So I know that was something that was important. So we got, Parks asked me to let you know that
Perfect.
was
Thank
completed.
you.
That's great.
Councilman Carn?
While Jeremy's doing reports, can you give us an estimate on the Trails project adjacent to SSD on a timing and completion?
Yes. The contractor on the Amanda Lane portion, that's the southern portion, the contractor is mobilizing either this week or next week with plans to construct it over this fall and maybe some finish work next spring. UDOT's portion, the Hot Pots portion, is out to bid right now, and bids are due August 26th for that portion, and then relatively same timeframe.
Are they trying to do the work while the water's lower? Is that a
Generally, yes.
goal?
Generally, yes. Obviously, we can't predict per se what kind of winter we're gonna have, and so there's kind of a trade-off, right? The lake level will get low to a point, but then
And this is
good or bad.
city trail standard 8-foot paved.
It will not be paved. If you remember, not at this time. The issue we had was the soil conditions are so bad on the lake bed, as you can imagine, that it would have been cost prohibitive to build a substructure that would not settle the day of construction, which would not have been, in theory, good financial sense. So what we're doing is we're building more of a value approach that will settle a little bit. And so the plan is to let that stabilize over a couple of years and then come back and pave it once the subgrades have stabilized. But the initial, based on the budget we had available and the initial geotechnical designs for a trail that could have been paved immediately, the project would have not had sufficient funding to move forward.
So we're more of an 8-foot crushed gravel.
10-foot
10-foot
road
crushed
paved.
gravel
Yeah.
type paved.
Solid surface, compacted, you can
Right.
certainly walk strollers on it. It's a hardened surface that is smooth. It's not gravel. It's compacted and hard.
Okay.
It may over time settle, and as a maintenance crew, we'll deal with that and deal with, any localized areas that settle. And once we feel confident that we can pave it, and that the paving will not just deteriorate immediately, we'll move forward.
And the
with that.
city will assume responsibility for this surface.
We
trail
haven't had that discussion internally yet, so there is a discussion yet still to be had with the maintenance of these sections and how that reconciles with the existing SSD MDA.
Okay. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, I've got the consent, approval of the minutes for August 5th.
So made.
I have a first from Councilman McComber. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilwoman Barton. All in favor?
Hi.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We have business item 1, the lease agreement.
Jeremy, lease agreement?
Yeah, I don't know if anyone from SensaWave was able to attend tonight. Oh, yes. May not have any questions for them. They have a franchise agreement. They are in Eagle Mountain, and they're trying to service our city. They want to start with the Viviano development. And we have conduit that we preemptively installed to share and to, recoup those costs. So this agreement allows them to lease for a market-based annual fee, a portion so they can bring in conduit from basically Eagle Mountain down using the existing conduit. And they'll start with serving Viviano, and then this agreement allows expansion of this agreement to future areas if they want to continue using other city conduit. But for now, they're just trying to get to Viviano.
Any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve business item 1 as stated on the agenda, including staff findings.
Second.
I have a first from Councilman Wilden, second from Councilman Carn. Any further discussion? Barton?
Aye.
Comber?
Aye.
Wilden?
Aye.
Carn?
Aye.
Wadman?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. We have business item 2, the intent to annex North Lake Meadow 2.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We've received a petition of annexation for a property that's located just west of Mountain Sunrise Academy. This is on Pony Express Parkway. Let me see if this works. This is an area that's identified in the city's annexation policy plan as annexed into the city. It's also identified in the Lehigh annexation plan to go to Saratoga Springs. You can see the property identified there on the map with the star. Tonight, we are basically this is initiating the process, so a resolution would be adopted should the council be willing tonight that would move this item forward, and it would start the clock ticking. We'd then have 30 days before we could hold a public hearing on this item.
And Questions from the council?
This is an intent to annex, no zoning with the annexation at this time?
They do have proposed zoning would be R19, which would match, so the name of the they have a proposed name, it's Lake Meadows. To the west, there's Lake Meadows 1, this would be Lake Meadows 2, so it matched the zoning that adjacent subdivision and be connected to it.
And can you remind us what R19?
Basically, it's just single-family residential on 9,000 square foot lots.
Okay,
Or larger.
or larger.
Or larger, yeah. Minimum 9,000.
So it'll match adjacent zoning? If there's no other questions, I'll entertain a motion. Oh,
Oh, that's okay. Go ahead. I just was going to point out that this is not, you're not approving anything right now. The development agreement will come later.
Just
And then you'll actually act on that and approve the annexation later.
okay.
You're welcome to change your mind too. This just starts the clock where public noticing takes place and it comes back later.
So I'll move to approve business item 2, intent to annex North Lake Meadows 2, as stated on the agenda with any other staff findings and conditions.
I'll second.
I have a first from Councilman Carn, a second from Councilman McComber. Any further discussion? Wilden?
Aye.
McComber?
Aye.
Carn.
Aye. Barton?
Aye.
Wadman?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. We have amendments to Title IX, Animals of the City Code.
Mayor and council, the changes to this title were coordinated with the legal staff. Basically, it was to update some of the language. It does change a lot of the violations from misdemeanor to administrative violations, which does a couple of things. One, it allows the violations to be enforced by police officers, animal control officers, or even code enforcement could enforce these, and sends them to the ACE court instead of the justice court. Some of the title still has misdemeanor penalties attached, as noted in the title. Additionally, it changes or describes in better detail with a little bit more common sense what constitutes a noise or nuisance violation by animals. That was one of the sections you probably noticed. And it adds some new sections on notification requirements for stray animals, a little section on sanitation, and a little section on manure. So I think you've had a chance to probably take a look at this in the packet, but if there's any questions, I'll be happy to try and answer.
Just one quick, simple question. We had a concern earlier today, someone talking about all of these internal accessible dwelling units and renters. Well, if you have two homes, people are going to have animals, their own animals. Is this by structure, or is this by, if it's a duplex, like an IADU, do they get 3 dogs in the upper and 3 dogs in the basement? Was that clarified in the code?
Not to that detail, no.
So,
Is it?
It is referring to the residential lot or the commercial establishment.
Let's see.
So it does not apply to the owner.
So it is,
That was unaddressed before, but now it is
Now it's
addressed, that it's
Thank
per
you.
residential lot.
Question.
thank you.
So
Yeah.
with that.
Not residential units, as lot.
Both owners necessarily couldn't own
3 dogs each.
the number of domestic animals.
Right. They'd have to coordinate.
Figure it out. Yeah.
Or the owner, because it should be owner occupied.
Right, it should be owner occupied.
And
Doesn't let
if
renters-
not, then obviously, I mean, code enforcement needs to be informed. It's hard for city to know when something's being owner occupied or not. We really count on neighbors. We don't like to be squeaky wheels, but squeaky wheels get it done. And your neighbors aren't being good neighbors to you, so, by doing it, so you have no problem turning them in. But yeah, so absolutely, the owner and whoever they're renting to has to decide whether they're going to,
Who's going to have the dogs? Yeah.
the pets.
And did we get this noise code from neighboring cities at all?
I'm not sure if there was a specific city, but I do know they did look at some other surrounding area jurisdictions to
So
find some language.
I guess my concern with this is, like, does this mean an officer has to sit there for 30 minutes and listen to a dog bark? before they
No.
get cited? I don't want them doing that.
Send me a text.
We're
I'll send
asking-
you an Amazon link that gives you a thing that you plug into your outside, and when the dog barks, it gives them a noise that pierces their ears, and they'll shut the hell up.
It doesn't work.
It worked on my neighbor's dog, so I don't know. But I guess if the dog's deaf, that won't work, right?
My understanding.
So how do we put this
We're
in
going to
the,
ask the complainants to gather that data.
okay.
Yeah.
So they can film with their phone or?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
what I
last-
don't want to have is our officers
Waiting around for 30 minutes.
waiting around for 30 minutes listening to a dog bark. That's
No,
a
we're-
waste of their time.
Now, we're
But I do
planning
like
on
the
asking them to
policy.
provide the
Okay,
data.
all right, I'm good.
That's reserved for the mayor. He has to sit. I do have a comment.
Okay, Councilman Wilden.
My only concern on 1A, this is a little bit reminiscent of, I remember when someone brought a snow shoveling ordinance to us. I don't know if you guys remember that, where if you didn't shovel your sidewalk within 24 hours or something, that's long gone, that we kind of kiboshed. I understand the purpose of, you know, if it lasts for 30 minutes or longer. My concern is, say, you have a one-time offender and they're like out of town or something like that. And I know like this is really not designed for that type of thing, but sometimes there's ornery neighbors that are just gonna turn them in. Technically, they violated an ordinance. I'd like to see something in there where it's,
Like
this
a
is a
repeat-
repeated complaint or offense, that it's occurred more than once.
Officers have officer discretion.
I would like it
Yeah,
in the
obviously.
code, but.
Obviously, they'll try to take in consideration the totality of the circumstances to look at things.
And I also appreciated taking it from a Class B misdemeanor to an administrative offense. I don't think we need to be creating criminals in our city because their dogs are getting out of control or their cats are everywhere. But, so yeah, I do like that shift. So I appreciate that.
Okay, Councilman Wadman.
Actually, I was going to just say what Michael was saying, because we have crossed out in the rabies section of violation is Class C misdemeanor. So is that penalty for all of these
No,
items?
as you look through the title, you'll see that there's
a
some
couple.
sections that note that there's a misdemeanor penalty attached.
Right,
And
okay,
at the very back, it says unless noted, it's an administrative violation.
okay.
Basically, the really offensive stuff, but like just having your dog at large once is not going to give you a Class B misdemeanor.
Exactly, so that's what,
And
okay, thanks.
don't forget, there's also some remedies under the other code in the law, under state code, there are some remedies that if we weren't getting something or weren't able to charge something administratively, there are in some cases some ways to fall to it.
I mean, when I was a kid, a neighbor sicked their dog on me and said, "Sick the Mormon."
I know.
And so, like, that's a hate crime, right? So that's going to be a felony, but.
Yeah, there's also provisions in Title 20 for when these offenses can be brought as a criminal offense. So maybe that's something we need to
Yeah,
like,
the reason I asked
It does
was,
reference Title 20.
because this section right here was just talking about if they don't have a collar, their tag, it could be, so I'm glad we took that out, the misdemeanor. Okay.
my suggestion for adoption here, and I didn't notice this before, but it should say, subject to the penalties of Title 20, which by default are administrative. But it also allows criminal in the case of like a dog attack, a vicious animal type of offense.
We
So I
just
would
add that at
suggest
the
that
end.
change be made, yeah.
Okay.
Problem with manure accumulation?
Well, occasionally, yeah, there are some, we do have some larger animal facilities.
Some of it's
in-
really fancy. It bags itself and sets on the side of the trail.
We have a business that's a horse
Yeah.
breeding business that has been storing their manure and
Okay,
Okay, any other questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve amendments to Title IX Animals of the City Code regarding animal control, city initiated ordinance 25-55 day to day, including as stated by Kevin Thurman, city attorney, at the end, referencing penalties to Title 20, if not specifically mentioned. And you can go back to the minutes hearing him if there's some clarification on that.
it's in there.
Okay, I have a first from Councilman McComber,
Second.
second from Councilman Wadman. Any further discussion? Karn,
Aye.
Barton,
Aye.
Wadman,
Aye.
McComber.
Aye.
Wilden.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll just mention while I'm standing here, we're really happy that the signal 400 North and Mountain View corridor.
The sidewalk's getting poured.
Oh, yeah, holy cow. Big thank you.
We have business item 4, amendments to Title 19 Land Development Code of the City of Saratoga Springs, Chapters 1902.
All right, thank you, Mayor and City Council. This is a rather large code amendment, so it's amending Section 1902 and 1916. It's pertaining mostly to architectural standards, and so because of that, we actually hired out an architectural firm to help us with some of these code amendments and create some of the visuals. So this is Whitney Ward and Rachel Stein with VCBO Architecture. They've been great to work with on this, and they will present kind of a visual overview of what they've done. But before they do that, I'm just going to kind of go through some of the changes, kind of a bullet point list of the changes that we've done here. We could be here all night if you wanted to. We could go through this line by line, but I don't think you guys want to do that. So really quick, I'm going to summarize it in a nutshell. So in Section 1902 definitions, we defined what a primary material is. And then moving on to 1916, we had a section where 3D renderings with photorealistic material and color boards are now going to be required with all submittals. Then moving on, we have improved pedestrian connectivity between buildings and public right-of-way as a new requirement. Updates to the parking area, outdoor display, and screening standards. And then continuing on, we have articulation requirements for buildings. So we've broken buildings into 2 different categories. So if it's 20,000 square feet or larger, it falls in one category. And then if it's below 20,000 square feet, it falls in another category. So we've provided articulation requirements for those buildings accordingly in those 2 classifications. And then we've updated 3-family and multifamily material and color requirements, updates to 3-family and multifamily articulation requirements, clarified material and color requirements for non-residential. We've added an exception for rain gutters for buildings with pitched roofs. And let's see here, last but not least, we've added additional standards for office warehouses, heavy commercial, light industrial, and industrial buildings. So really quick, let me get to the slide here. This is not working. Can you go to the next slide? All right. Let's see.
We were just listening.
It's not even on. Oh, where's the switch? Here we go. There we go. Much better. Okay, so when we took this to Planning Commission, there was some discussion on rain gutters and downspouts, and the following language was proposed. So we've prepared 2 different options. This is something that was not in the original draft. It was resulted as part of the discussion in Planning Commission. But the first option would basically allow an exception to allow for accent colors on rain gutters and downspouts to enhance the building's character and provide contrast. And then we've written it in a second way where that could be done through an exception, which you see on the bottom of the screen there. This is kind of a visual example of what the Planning Commission was talking about. So you can see in this image here, these rain gutters are contrasting colors, or they're accent colors that are different than the building itself, adding an additional architectural element or flair, if you will. So this was the idea of one of the planning commissioners. Maybe we should allow this in our code. It's not something that's in the current draft, but something that the planning commission recommended that the city council consider tonight. So there's that. I'm going to go ahead and turn now the time over to our architects here, and they can run through the rest of the amendments.
that. You can, the yellow language would be an option. It does say that you could approve it, at the Land Use Authority. Option 2, this exceptions are either that the rain gutter downspouts are for pitched roofs and are designed in a manner that reduces visibility and closely matches the building or primary accent colors. We actually see that that's reasonable on pitched roofs. On a flat roof, you don't even have to see it, but on a pitched roof, it's more difficult. But we did have that in the code already. And then the other exception would be rain, gutter, and downspouts contribute to the creative application of accent colors by incorporating contrasting accent colors and shapes. However, from a staff perspective, there's a slight concern that we might just start getting a lot of vibrant downspouts because that's the exception and that's more affordable. So we'll continue with the presentation from the architect, but just wanted to add to that a little bit.
Sarah, can I make a comment on that real quick? I have a concern that becomes an extra branding or signage almost that they can get away with. And we're gonna have these oddly colored,
Become a circus.
Lime green.
oddly colored spouts everywhere, yeah.
Yeah, so when we get to it, I think
Yeah.
I saw everyone's reaction. I think we're probably not gonna.
And I'll pull up the consultant's
Okay.
PowerPoint and we'll go from there. And I'm sure there will be more discussion on that topic. So.
All right, hello. We're from VCBO Architecture. My name is Rachel Whitney. We wanted to start you guys off with a little bit of a reminder from when we saw you last at the end of May. We did a visual preference survey to show you examples of industrial-style warehouses and some options for the architecture for these buildings. The yellow dots there mean you did not like it, and the blue dots were indicative of buildings and architectural features that you did like. So some of the likes here were pop-outs, aligning the horizontal and vertical architecture of buildings, grand main entrances with spanning windows, a neutral color palette but with contrasting tones, and then human scale elements such as a primary entry and site features. Some of the dislikes were color and material changes that aren't also physically articulated. Colors that were too similar, we got a specific comment, no brown 10 on no brown 11. And cube-shaped structures and dominating bright colors. So here's some examples of the buildings that were liked and disliked.
And we apologize for the text. We're going to maybe skip over this, come back to this at the end so you guys can all collectively tell us your opinions about the rain gutters. And then we just wanted to talk about some of the architectural standards that were developed here.
Yeah, so starting off with some of the site and loading areas. So this is generally behind the building. The intent here was to visually buffer the loading areas, which often have large receiving doors at the exterior. A lot of these are visible on some of your current parcels, so we wanted to make sure that they did include some articular variation, and also were buffered by a 10-foot landscaping buffer with street trees every 30 feet and a 6-foot solid wall.
And those trees really help give that additional buffering over time to complement the wall. The other thing that we wanted to note here is that we have a range of, as Austin was saying, both horizontal and vertical articulation. So horizontal is the steps in and out of the building along the ground plane, and vertical is sort of the up and down at the roof plane. And we've identified both vertical and horizontal articulation to break down the perceived mass of the building. When you get into these large warehouse and industrial buildings, the scale is quite large and it can become sort of unapproachable. And so to break down the perceived scale, make it more comfortable and make it more visually interesting, we want to have articulation. Now, we will note that the articulation is the highest standard at the primary street or the front-facing facade, and then it goes down in priority on the second and rear facades, recognizing some of the functionality and components of these types of buildings. We also, to complement the horizontal articulation, the in and out. We want to also have vertical articulation. We've also noted that flat roofs are the priority for these building typologies. When you get to a sloped roof for buildings that big, that is a lot of roof area and often without variation. And so the preference here again is a flat roof with parapets that hide some of the mechanical and equipment that might be on the roof. And again, the vertical articulation that aligns with the horizontal to highlight, especially the corners of the building. We also wanted to make sure that we were creating those entryways that are welcoming and visible, so that when folks enter the site, they know where they're going to go into the building. And so we're looking at a range of different ways to highlight those entryways, from using a different material, from having both horizontal and vertical articulation, and identifying an amenity zone, which is, again, similar to your visual preference survey, a little bit of a paved area, maybe with some landscaping and nicer elements to draw people into the entryway. We also want to highlight the entry through a roof element, a trellis or an overhead that also helps to protect the door in the entryway, and again, brings folks into the right place in these buildings.
We have a question from Councilman McComber.
I just figured it'd be easier now than
Great.
having to like back up. So your covered awnings, is there like the overhang requirement on how
Yes.
far out it needs to go? I didn't see that I was looking through the packet, but I didn't see it here on the breakout too. Because I didn't want them just doing like a 6-inch little bump out and it's like, oh yeah, it's an awning.
Rachel's looking at the exact
They totally
language
would.
right now so that I don't miss.
Well, you can keep going and then if
Yeah,
you find that.
and then we'll circle
I
back
just
to
want to
that
make
one.
sure that it's at least, I would say, 5.
So right now, we've identified that as 2 feet. If we'd like, again, we could extend that further in
2
depth.
feet isn't really an awning.
Yeah.
I mean, 2 feet.
It's more of an architectural element,
Yeah, I mean, and that's not the purpose of this. The purpose is to create an awning, and we've even called it that, so.
Councilman Carn?
And if we're gonna have back and forth, what determines what the front facade is, the side facade, the rear facade?
So typically, it's the road that it's facing.
Okay.
Sort of a primary roadway would be your front
So if the
facade.
rear is not on a road but extremely visible from other areas, it's still a back facade?
Typically, there's 2 buildings.
Yep. And that's one of the challenges.
I was just going to say, on these particular types of buildings that we have on the screen here, so you're going to have like a loading bay, and so that's going to be distinguished separately from the other facades.
So I guess what I'm thinking about it, because this doesn't apply to the one we've recently approved, but what happens if one of these facilities is below a neighborhood, there's no roads behind it, but they're looking at the back of it and it's just doors?
That's a great question.
And so we did include some articulation on the rear facade, recognizing that in instances, this could be seen from other areas because they are so large. But it is admittedly a challenge inherent to the building typology.
That's the difference. All it is you get these
little Yep.
panels of a different color.
Yeah, well, and it's a 200-foot instead of a 50-foot span to break up your articulation, right?
Trees that'll grow in 40
Can
years.
we make it different?
40-year trees, yeah.
If it can be seen, can we change the code just for that?
We could change anything.
Problem is if it's developed and then as it houses is zoned down the road, if the houses aren't there yet. And
We do have, in a different section of code, we do state loading docks shall be screened from view by the use of a combination of walls, fences, and dense planting. So if it was like that, you would see more than just the trees here, you would need a wall as well. That would help.
Yeah.
We can add
I
more.
don't know if there's a solution to it, frankly. I don't think there's a solution, especially when you're talking about an elevation difference.
it's just really important where you put these.
That's,
Yeah.
we could, when we approve a certain build out, we can talk about that for the position.
Well, I mean, if where you put this into code,
It needs code, it needs.
all they have to do is meet code.
This is the time.
Yeah.
This is the time.
But I don't know if there's a fix to that, frankly.
No, it's tricky. If you want to allow this building type those loading bays have to face some
They have to
direction
go
ultimately.
somewhere.
So,
Yeah.
one thing we do have in our code though is we do require windows on the, above the loading doors, which is a nice feature that some of these buildings don't have.
I mean, anything we do to break it up helps.
Yep.
The windows is a nice feature.
So again, as Austin mentioned, just making sure that we are looking at windows on all sides of the building for that exact reason, recognizing that these buildings are so large, they are often visible, even if it's not the primary entryway. So looking at ways to break it up, articulate it, and have windows with more windows at sort of that ground level, a slight reduction as you go up to the upper level, but again, windows being required on all sides of the building. And then also just looking at the materiality, and we apologize for the slides again, we'll get you these without the text overlapping, but making sure that we have a high-quality, durable material. And, you know, especially with warehouse and industrial buildings, you may swap out the interior operations, the equipment. You may have tenants coming and going, but they don't often change the exteriors with buildings like this. So making sure that we have good, high-quality materials and that there's a variety of materials on all of the facades of the building so that you don't end up with one color or one material on any single facade. And again, limiting some of the corrugated metal, and finally articulating those corner and those entryway features with using materials to help highlight them as well.
And then finally, regarding the primary and accent colors of the building. So the intent here is to visually appeal the exterior and help reduce the large perceived scale of the large buildings. So again, from our discussion on the visual preference survey, we noted that a neutral color palette is desired. And then the terminology we used here was contrasting in tone. So you can see some examples of that in this graphic below, which is also included in the design standards. It recommends some tones that are neutral but contrasting, and then gives some examples of colors that are not quite different enough to be used together on the same palette. And then accent colors should be used no more than 8% of the facade, and they should be complementary to the overall building palette. And then artwork, signage, and awnings would be approved, or would be permitted as approved.
Do we find out how far the awning is? Find out.
I was double checking. I thought it was 2 feet, but it looks like we just have it as a recommendation. So it says lower roof elements, trellises, awnings, and other architectural shade elements are encouraged to create visual interest and provide human scale. So they are not required. We could require them.
And if you do want them to protect that entryway, you'd typically go about 5 feet.
That's what I was thinking.
So that was the end of our sort of formal presentation. Again, questions, discussions, preferences on gutters.
Sarah, did we require the last one on that, they had to do those 5 things or whatever? Don't they have to have the awnings? Did they have to on that one?
When we required the 5 things, they had to pick 2 of the 5, so awnings was one of those options.
Okay. I don't know. I mean, I'd like to hear from the rest of the council what their thoughts are, because I think that those awnings definitely do break up. I mean, we require it, I mean, for consistency purposes, we require it on multifamily houses that back arterials. So they have to have like the awnings on the back over the porches and stuff, because it really does break up the eye. And if you look at the eyesore that's in Lehigh on Redwood Road, if they had awnings, it'd be amazing how much better those buildings would look. With just a simple thing like an awning, it would have really changed those zebra striped buildings down there.
I agree with
I agree.
Michael.
5-foot awnings.
5-foot awnings.
Require 5-foot awnings, you've got it.
Plus, it points you towards where the entrances are. I mean, it
On the
sets it
corner,
apart.
and yeah, the main entrance.
Yep.
Sets it, yeah, it,
Okay.
I appreciate all the hard work that went into this. This is something that's really important. We're in that stage in our city that we're getting more of these. If I can just take one point of privilege, Mayor. Mark, if we could look into making sure that trees have been planted and are of decent size along Pioneer Crossing, where they cut down all of the trees that were shielding those buildings. And one of the reasons why we put those is because they had those big trees that were shielding the buildings. They've actually gone in and cut them all down because they are an invasive species. The Russian olive trees are not native to Saratoga Springs, and so you can cut those down, but they do shade and they do shield. And so I get why they wanted to cut them down, but I just want to make sure that all of the trees that are required per this code are being met, because we're going to be requiring it for all of the others.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, then I will entertain a motion.
Wait, do we
Oh, we're gonna talk about the
just say
gutters.
no on the rain gutters right off the bat?
Look,
Oh.
changing the colors of the.
Oh, we're doing something else?
Yeah, so the way that it's currently written into your code is that the rain gutters should sort of be visually tied into the rest of the architecture and not stand out.
Yes.
Right? And so that's the existing language. And so we can just leave it as exists.
So I guess one question on that, like, I'm not a fan of blue, orange, yellow, but when people do the copper ones,
But that would tie
I think
in,
that would ties in. That would count as
Okay.
tying in, I think.
especially if they're using a lot of neutral colors,
Yeah,
because the
copper
copper,
ties
in.
then it
Copper.
goes to a green too.
okay,
It's pretty.
perfect. Okay,
Yeah.
I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve business item number 4, the Minnesota 1990 Development Code of the City of Saratoga Springs, and the rest is stated on the agenda, dated for,
I have a
All
first,
staff findings.
oh, well, self-staff finding and conditions. Thanks.
I have a first from Councilwoman Barton. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Sarah, do we have to,
But you-
for further, do we have to clarify that we
Yes.
want you
You,
amend it to say that, to
Oh.
keep it, the gutters as existing code?
And I will amend that to keep the gutters as stated on the existing code.
Amended, second.
Okay, I have a first from Councilwoman Barton, second from Councilman Carn. Any further discussion? McComber?
Aye.
Wadman?
Aye.
Wilden?
Aye.
Barton?
Aye.
Carn?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
excellent, thank you all. Sorry, did you want to require the 5-foot awnings?
Yes.
A
Yes.
requirement across
Oh.
the board for every
Yes.
Yes.
one? Okay, we didn't get that.
We need to,
I move to reconsider. Can I make that motion or just Audrey has to?
Can I move to reconsider the motion?
okay, I
Second that.
have a first and a second to reconsider the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I will entertain an amendment to the motion.
So I make the amendment as well, right?
Two amendments.
I'm going to amend the motion, as we all just said. Do I need to say, what do I need to say in
just to add
particular? Just to
5 foot.
add the 5-foot requirement for the awnings, right? That's good.
Okay,
I'll second that
I have an
amended
amended first and a
motion that
second.
I amended already twice now.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Nikki's great, she got it.
Thanks, Nikki.
She read our mind. Okay, amendments to Title 19 of the Land Development Code of the City of Saratoga Springs. Outdoor seating areas.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
It's not
This is hard because I can't see it. So our purpose in this was to allow for outdoor seat, but if there's a large amount of outdoor seating, provide parking spaces, so parking's not a big mess. We wanted to allow it in all the zones. I can't see what I'm doing. Oh, yeah, that's a good idea. So right now, we're proposing that if there's more than 12 seats in the outdoors, that you.
11, it's 12 or more.
Oh, 12 or more, yeah. If there's 12 or more seats, then you'd add one additional parking space per 4 seats. We didn't want to penalize like a smaller little restaurant that has a couple tables out there for people to eat.
Sorry, real quick, I'm just pointing out a discrepancy in your code, because earlier in you say more than 11, and then here you say more than 12. And so I believe it's if there are 12 or more, because, and before it was 11. So, yeah, basically if there's 3 4-tops, then they need to start parking it.
Okay.
But we just want to make sure that it's just a little bit of a discrepancy in the code.
Yeah. So that was our purpose, is we don't want to penalize others, we just, if there's a lot of other seats there, we want to provide parking for it. Do you have any questions?
I just want to thank you so much for doing this. This is definitely something that is a concern for mine. We have a perfect example of a business who's now covering in their outdoor park. They're going to actually, I mean, outdoor seating, they're going to put screens up and they're going to have shields. I mean, they're going to have like 50, 60 seats, outside seating, and that is definitely needing to be parked, right? And I think that, I mean, there was some comments from some of the planning commissioners. I do want to just, I mean, on my way out as a city councilman, I just want to encourage staff to continue to make sure at least annually the planning commission is educated on their role as a recommending body. They're not a legislative or judicial body like that, not judicial, but like a decision-making body that the city council is. Because some of the comments I saw and reasons why they were voting against things was like run for city council. So just want to remind them that their role is to look, does it meet code or does it meet the intent of the city's goal? I think that having a exclusion of like three tables basically with, you know, some seating on it to encourage businesses is fantastic. It's when it becomes excessive. And, you know, like outside of Handles, they got 3 little tables. I mean, they're gonna be excluded from this, you know. But when you start really looking at having a lot of tables all the way around and tons of seating, then that's when it needs to be parked. And then again, we're not being punitive to businesses because technically we could park this like we would almost internally, but we're doing it much less and we're saying 1 car for every 4 is how the code is written, I believe. And so 1 parking spot for a seat of 4, it's basically saying per car, you can have up to 3 to 4 people in that car. So I think that it's gonna meet the objective to make sure that our businesses are good neighbors to each other. Because how many times have we gone to a business and you see a sign in front of the parking lot, this is Subway parking only, this is this parking only, and if you park here, you're gonna slash your tire. I mean, there's even one that jokes, like they even say if you park here, they're gonna like tow you or crush your car, like, you know, like the one, I think it's the Chili's one that says they're gonna crush your car, like they're being funny. But it's still, just so you know, people, like in the city of Saratoga Springs, if it's like the curbside parking, you can park there. If there's no other parking available, you're absolutely able to park there. They don't have the right to tow you or boot you. You can park in a pickup. That's not, that's part of their required parking for people who are inside the restaurant. And so.
They can mark them as such, but you can.
You can mark them, but you can park at them. You don't have to, so just so you know, like, I may be giving up my good parking spot because you can park in those. But I just think that this is going to create good neighbors so that we're getting the necessary parking, that the businesses are going to be able to provide what they need to for their businesses. So I appreciate all the hard work. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments?
I would presume we're talking about like permanent seating, not like if it's summertime, they put a couple extra tables out for an event or
I
something.
think they'd be okay with under 12.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that was brought up in planning commission on the seasons and how you do that, but some businesses, whether it's winter or not, they're still gonna have people coming outside.
I guess I'm thinking of like some restaurants where it's outside, but there's some type of awning over them versus, I can't even think of one, like an ice cream shop that has a couple like.
Handles leaves their out year round, I think.
And that's why we picked the number we picked, just so you know, we did look at if it's just like an ice cream shop or something like that, and they have a table or 2, or, so this would even allow, 2 or 3 small tables outside without any extra parking, but once they get more than that, they would need parking.
Okay.
Perfect example, Handles doesn't have inside seating. So it's like, so they're actually overparked, so. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is a line, really. They have like 1 bench.
And then when you make your motion, if you could clarify, so the red line version says more than 12, the staff report does say more than 11. So right now, the draft would be more than 12. If you want it to be more than 11, please specify that in your motion.
Actually, I'm okay with more than 12 because that gives us
12 or more.
That gives you, or actually
3,
get rid of
4.
just more than 12. That gives you the 3, 4 tops excluded. And then once you go to that 4th 4 top,
Yeah.
then you have to do it. So this helps Stephen's point. This gives you 3, not just 2, because if we did 11, if we did 12
Then
or
you're
more, you'd
gonna
only
get-
have 2 tables.
As an illustrative example, Seeds Bar had, I think, 2 about 6-person benches out in front of that at one point when they were doing the outdoor seating.
I think more than 12. How you have it written in this red line. I think
Okay,
But you saw where I saw the confusion.
Yes.
I will entertain a motion.
I move that we approve business item 5, amendments to Title 19 on the Lebanon Development Code regarding outdoor seating areas and as stated on the agenda, dated today, including the clarification that the outdoor seating is more than 12 seats.
Okay, I have a first from McComber, a second from Wilden. Any further discussion? Wadman?
Aye.
Carn?
Aye.
Wilden? Aye. McComber?
Aye.
Barton?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. We have business item 6, amendments to Title 19 Land Development Code, chapters 1909 and 1916.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is a follow-up to a pending ordinance that was brought before you earlier this year. Really, this code amendment consists of 2 parts, one to Title 1909, which is our off-street parking. These are city-wide standards that will apply to drive-throughs throughout the city. And then the second part of it is Chapter 1916, which implements a change in grade buffer for new non-residential development adjacent to residential development. So in 1909, the language that is being proposed is essentially comes down to a 20-foot setback for drive-through lanes adjacent to residential development, and then a restriction for speaker boxes located between non-residential buildings and residential development, restricting operation between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m.
Can I ask a quick question? Mark, did you clarify with Kevin on?
I asked him to be ready to answer your question on that particular, as to whether.
Then we
it-
can wait, yeah.
grandfather-
Whether it's, yes.
Yeah, so, go ahead.
So this title is not going to be retroactive, if that makes sense. So anything that's already in existence, this is not going to apply to. However, if you want staff to consider like a noise ordinance. Noise ordinance amendments, we can do that.
Okay.
I would look into the noise.
Yeah.
And that can be applied, a nuisance is different than a land use regulation, where like if they're creating a nuisance, you can regulate that.
Okay.
Have that apply to existing businesses.
And noise ordinance is 10 p.m.
Yeah, thank you
Are
for
they,
clarifying that.
they operate, sorry about the specific thing, are they operating outside these hours with the speaker boxes?
We don't know yet.
We don't know all the
They don't
time. This
have
is
an-
over by R&R.
Yet.
No, so we don't know, yeah.
Right, they don't have any open yet. Based on the businesses that they will have, they will not be operating outside those, but there's still 2 more businesses that we don't know what they'll be, and we don't know what future businesses might be.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
the
they could
changing.
switch out or something, yeah.
Look at
Oh, the
Burger King.
nuisance thing, I think it'd be good.
Yeah.
But if there is a business that serves breakfast, 7 a.m. could be easily.
Usually it's 6, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay.
Sorry, keep going. Thanks, Kevin.
Coffee places.
So there's that language there on the screen that's being proposed for 1909. For 1916 here, I have a summary of what is being implemented with the changing grade buffer. Among the things that are being implemented with this are an increased setback requirement for buildings, a requirement for walls and trees, additional trees, between the non-residential and residential development, a restriction for drive-through lanes completely within the buffer area, and then a exception that would allow for where equivalent buffering is already being provided for the council to evaluate that. It's listed here as the land use authority, but that would be at the site plan when that comes forward. So there's that language. With that, I can stand for any questions that you guys may have.
Any other questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move that we approve business item number 6, amendments to Title 19 Land Development Code of the City of Cedar Springs, chapters 19.09, off-street parking, and chapters 19.16, site and architectural design standards regarding grading buffer, citywide initiated, ordinance 2558, dated today with any staff findings and conditions.
I'll second.
Okay. I have a first from Councilwoman Barton, a second Councilman McComber. Any further discussion?
Can you read that all again for me?
Wilden?
Aye.
Carn?
Aye.
Barton?
Aye.
Wadman?
Aye.
Comber?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Mayor, can I point a privilege real quick? I just wanted to point out that Councilmember Barton, this was her first
It was my first time.
initiated as a city council member, a concern that she had, and she brought it forward and going through the whole process. And like you were saying, Chris, earlier about following process and everything, and just congratulate you on your first ordinance.
Thank you, and thank you, staff, because that was one of my biggest concerns as part of that, so thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, we have business item 7, updates to City Code Title 11.
Mayor, Council, I'll start to tackle this, but I've got some backup in the audience and with Nikki. Essentially, as we've been going through selling the plots and things with our cemetery, yay, we're super excited. We've learned some things, and there's some things that we missed in some of our earlier conversations. There's a little clarification we're looking for from some of our previous conversations. So on this topic, we wanted to bring you some alternatives, some of the things that we've found out that were kind of missing as we went through this, and kind of walk through some of those changes. Specifically, there's some questions that remained unanswered. We went back and listened to the minutes of when we approved this, our policies and procedures. And there was still a divide on the council at the time. We didn't get a clear answer as to whether we do weekend burials or not. And so we wanted to bring that back. We've got 2 bits of language for you proposed. One would allow weekend burials, one would not. It definitely is a policy direction that you all get to set for us. We are speaking from those that have had experience in this, as well as some of the things that we've learned. We had some discrepancies, for example, in some of the images, like our raised headstones. One of them showed a 32-inch raised headstone with a 4-inch lower raised strip under it. And then we had another one that showed 36 inches. So there was just some discrepancies and some changes that we wanted to do. We defined the administrative fee, and this really applies to the buyback of lots for people during the first 5 years. There would be a 20% administrative fee used to offset the costs of kind of the process. And then after that, the recommendation was that we come back and split the difference of the future cost of those plots with those residents who have purchased plots in the city if they're not going to use those burial rights. That was one of the topics that we had. Again, some just general policy clarity and clarification, and then some fee things that were missed. So again, I think those are some of the bigger topics that are there, but would be happy to address any of the specific questions that you might have.
Slides showing these different things you're talking about, because right now we're only seeing the Saturday options. There's only the one slide. Okay.
Yeah,
But
so
the other things were just some other things.
The text changes in the policy. Yeah, so if you looked at page 20 of the packet item, it shows kind of some clarification on some of those heights as it relates to it. So we've got them consistent. So instead of, a 32 with a 4-inch base, it's just 36 inches. We also allow for, the double headstones if you have 2 grave sites right next to each other, and that's for both flat and raised. And so again, some of those things were just more technical cleanups. And then some questions that were brought up. For example, the placement of stones is, culturally significant in some religions. And so placing stones on headstones is a symbol of remembrance. And so again, I'm not an expert, but as it's been explained to us. So we put some of those things back. We tried to address some cleanup things, throughout the code. So a lot of it's cleanup stuff. And again, on the policy side, we really just need direction from the council as to whether you want to move forward on the weekend burials or not. And then depending on which decision you make, then we can start talking fee structure if you choose.
On the Saturday burial, I had a chance to talk with Councilwoman Barton. We're a new cemetery with a short staff. My recommendation is for at least the first 2 years, we don't do Saturdays. We only have 2 people. 6 days a week's a lot to cover. Until we get growing, and our staff grows, then the future council can come back, look at it, and leave it up to the sexton whether we do Saturdays can be approved. Can we pull people in? Because we do have to cover the cost of time and a half. I mean, that's a choice people make for that. But my recommendation.
And the recommendation of the sexton.
Of the sexton is, for at least the first couple of years while we're getting off the ground and we're a very small staff, is that we don't do Saturdays, and we readdress that as we look at what the industry is changing to and what they're moving to. Because a lot of the industry, from vault setters to mortuaries are starting to do Saturday fees because of cost of staffing with the rapid rates and increases. So we're going to see a change over the next couple of years, but this will give us a chance to mature. Colton, feel free to speak up, throw something at me, whatever.
Is there a possibility that maybe we establish what the rate is? And because, I mean, there was the comment brought up about like religions and cultural things and stuff where the sexton can look at the schedules and if it's possible, give them some discretion. But I mean, I'm with you, Mayor. I agree. I think we need to be very cognizant of our limited staff and our employees, but maybe give the sexton some leeway a little bit.
I'll make a quick comment because this is something, I mean, we didn't disagree in a bad way. It was just something that was very, very personal to me. And so I had a really long talk with Jim last night. I think Kevin, she called, but just because we had public comment about this tonight as well. So just a quick example of why it's a really hard decision for me is my little brother, it was like 30 years ago, but he was 12, was in a tragic accident on Tuesday, passed away on Wednesday. Of course, we didn't have time to plan anything by Friday. So we did have on that Saturday, because that's something obviously wasn't planned for. We didn't want to prolong it. We were not waiting to bury my little brother, who's 12 years old, right, till later on. So for me, Saturdays are very important for things like that, right? They're not planned. It was a tragic accident. So we did go back and forth quite a bit on this, and I still am actually struggling with it, but not in a bad way. When I talked about Jim, we are limited on staff, and so I totally understand that. It's, you know, for city-wise, just for a couple of years, just kind of see where things are going and
Give him some leeway.
And then Colton, and I really appreciate Colton. He's fantastic. I was talking to Jim last night too. Like, can you please stay for 30 years, right? Because he's been so involved in the process and has actually given us some really good recommendations. And so I just wanted it, because we had public comment about it tonight too, which I really appreciated, was that it was a hard decision. And, but I get it, both sides of it, right? And for our city, I think right now the best option is not do that Saturday service. But again, we can address it, you know, if things come up and things change and Colton's like, hey, I'm having a lot of requests or whatever, it's maybe something we can always look at again. But for the first couple of years, while we're limited on staff,
And Councilman McComber's point, establish the fee now. Councilman Wilden's pulled up a bunch of different cemeteries that do have weekend fees. Provo, St. George, Orem, a few more.
Not really.
Not really.
I mean, it's a quick surge, so don't quote me on it, but those that do it on weekends, that fairly consistently, the large cities are double. Is that what you've seen?
Just because you have to have staff, depending on what type of service you're doing, how many services you have, I mean, some cemeteries have cutoffs, some cemeteries don't. Before we established a cutoff coming from Orem, the most funerals I've done in one day, I did 7 funerals in one day. We started backfilling at 10 a.m. and we didn't get done till 7 p.m. that night. And I mean, just that's why more or less people have started going to cutoffs just.
And where we're doing double depth, we have to have 2 people because we're opening deeper holes.
Minimum 2 people with a double deep. 3 makes it that much better.
Well, I think that doesn't help the argument for me saying 7, because that's a full day that someone can come in and work. With us being small and beginning, the odds of them having more than one on a Saturday, or that employee is committing their weekend to work.
Over and over again.
Over and over again, yeah.
That's why I was saying we establish the fee, but then allow the sexton to determine when it comes in.
When we need it.
And if they haven't done a burial in a week, then they're probably like, yeah, let's do one on a Saturday if you really want that. But you have to pay double or whatever.
So I think that aligns with what I was thinking is typically it would be policy no, but if you did it on the weekend, it'd be subject to your approval. And with
We establish the fee, whatever.
Yeah, with the fee. I mean, double did seem high, but I mean, again, this is not statistically valid, what I just put up here, but.
But, you know, if
That
you're.
appears to be what other
We're
people.
doing 12-foot holes with 3 people at time and a half. We're paying for a lot of staff for a day.
And Mayor, if I could, we think of a burial and it's just you're in and you're out. It's not. We actually
Right,
have
yeah.
to get there extra early, dig the hole, wait for the vault company to come and set the vault, then prep the site, make sure it's ready to go, have the actual funeral, wait until everyone's moved on, and then close up the site and.
Clean up
and
the
bury
chairs,
it.
clean
Colton
up.
said about 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And as you guys continually to grow too, you're small right now, but as you continually to grow, you have multiple services in one day, you're gonna have to be there to make sure the vault companies are setting up on the correct hole.
But by then, Colton will have the staff though, right? Because we're going to staff up as we get going. So hopefully by then, as the need becomes, we'll prevent it.
Is this, and I know, and again, I had a really great conversation with Jim last night about this, but as cemeteries are moving forward, are you seeing less and less of the Saturday burials? I mean,
From what I've seen with Orem, yeah, a lot of people talking to different mortuaries, morticians, a lot of morticians and mortuaries don't want to work Saturdays. So they're looking and trying to do any fees. I mean, vault companies are putting Saturday fees in just because it's more money out that they're having to do that cover their costs. So everybody's starting to do Saturday fees, which in turn, a normal Saturday burial, from what I've seen, you're looking at $2,000 to $4,000 more just to have it on Saturdays.
I think that's so
Cover
unfortunate.
staffing
But again,
for-
that's just, I get why they do that, but for me, as stated in the public, it's a disservice, I feel like, to families that are grieving, right? And so, again, I'm fine. It's really hard for me to do it, and I understand why, but, okay, thanks, Colton, for sharing.
So what is your guys' thoughts on
The two-time standard rate, Stephen, will you tell me what, you were looking up some stuff on the two-time standard rate thing, is it pretty common?
Okay, this is AI.
Yeah, no, we get- yeah.
So like, I said, pull up 15 cities, and on average, it's 80 to 120% higher. I mean, but
Again, it's,
AI lies, so.
what?
No, it might be an hallucination, but so. That's a real term if anyone.
That is.
Okay, just.
AI fabricates.
I think right now, keep it at 2 times, and then they can always.
We can revisit it, yeah.
2 times, reevaluate it. No on Saturdays for the first 2 years unless approved by the sexton as an exception for maybe religious purpose. We don't want to not.
Right, like,
You could just
especially
make
if it's
that-
a religious reason or something, I mean, you'd be able to, as they come to you and say, like, I'm this religion and we have to bury within 3 days. I mean, we need to respect.
We do have a
different
large
cultures.
Jewish congregation out here.
But there is, I mean,
Yeah.
and we want to respect those cultures, and they would be willing to pay extra because they're meeting that, and they're going to be appreciative that there is at least the option. I
But
think
some
that-
can't. This is really hard for me, I'm sorry. I know I have to keep throwing stuff out there, but some people really can't pay that extra fee.
But a lot of people
And
actually want
so-
to extend now. They actually want to wait because they want to allow more people to come in. So, I mean, we've actually been, like, a lot of my friends, like, they'll hold on to their loved one for 2 weeks in the freezer to make sure that more family can come.
Well, again, I think
Yeah.
it's a little bit opposite depending on the situation where it was very tragic and
You
we
wanted to
don't want
get it
this to
over with.
extend. Yeah. So,
So we.
again, I'm just sharing, I'm fine.
And like we
Sharing
talked
concerns that I
about,
have.
Omar,
Yeah.
it was a shock when we got back the numbers showing cremation gardens were such a high number.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because that's something 4 years ago, Councilman Comer, you and I didn't even really place.
We didn't
you were
even
talking
think
about
about even
numbers in it.
including a cremation garden 4 years ago.
Because it wasn't as popular.
Well, because the church changed their policy on cremation.
So, Colton, I mean, does that
exactly
direction sound good to allow your staff to get off the ground, really get your cemetery running? I say yours because you got ownership over this investment.
Mayor, if that's the direction the council wants to go, would you just, as you make your motion, have direct staff to add that verbiage into the policies and to make sure that it's consistent? That we have the ability to kind of change any Scribner's errors throughout the document to make it all consistent.
So can we get some clarity? What are we voting on here?
No Saturdays
Without sexton approval.
for the first 2 years. So just in general, no
And the
Saturdays.
new fee schedule.
And then the 2 times the standard rate.
And I'm asking, is there any way that we can schedule this to come up in 2 years?
In
or is
2
that-
years, yep.
Okay.
Well, we wouldn't really schedule it. You would just.
As we
it'll be
noted,
on the
as we
council.
noticed, like, is talking with Colton, right, like, hey, do we need to revisit this?
Is there a way that we can put in there a term instead of 2 years based upon need? That we can say, if we start getting a lot of
I mean,
people.
if the sexton came back to us, Colton did in a year and said, hey, there's a demand, we've got staffing now.
Okay.
That would be a whole different.
Well, you can change it.
Yeah, that 2 years is just a recommendation, right?
2 years is just right now unless otherwise directed.
Okay, gotcha.
I have a few other questions in here.
Okay.
In 110307, where it says that the city reserves the right to relocate any burial lot to one of equal or greater value. I understand why we have this, why we're putting this in here. I'm concerned about when you already have family interned, and then you want to put mom or dad in the lower lot or somewhere else. Because when we started to dig the hole, there's a massive rock. How did you deal with that, Norm?
We broke the rock up as best we could, and if we couldn't break it up, the best way that we'd have to do is we'd have to contact the family and say, hey, we can't go any deeper. I've only, in the 13 years of doing that, I've ran into it one time, that we weren't able to do it, and we ended up having to move the lots for the family. It was just 2 lots. We moved the lots. The city at the time ate the cost. We moved the lots to the lower field, which was a brand new section at the time, and then we also gave them the opening and closing for free.
So I understand how that's easily doable when there's nobody interned.
Correct.
What happens when it's the 4th family member?
Usually when you dig the first grave or the grave next to it, you
get a good idea.
You get an idea of, especially, we dug our first grave over there last week, and honestly, I didn't hit a rock bigger than my phone, digging all the way down to the 8-foot mark. So.
And that was the double deep.
That was a double deep grave.
That's sort of cool. So, Chris, part of the reason that we're putting that clause in is, let's hypothetically say we have something like that, or we encounter, we've only done a very small portion of the cemetery. And so as we continue to build out, we want to just maintain that flexibility. We certainly, our preference is not to have a situation like that. However,
it's very rare this would happen.
Right. And so we're just leaving that as in the event that has to happen, we have the flexibility to be able to do so.
Okay. My other, and I don't really see a way around it. I think it's extremely unfortunate if it ever did happen. My other question was on 110327, why we're going from 60 years to 100 years for abandonment of burial rights.
That is a good question. Mayor, do you want to tackle that one?
Well, like, in my instance, I bought for my kids. In 60 years, they'll probably be alive at 80. In 100, they'll be gone. So it's just, so like for my kids, I bought plots for them. They're 16. In 60 years, they'll only be 76. But at 100 years, they'll be
I
gone.
bought a lot for my 7-year-old.
So yeah, so that's why we went from that 60 to 100 is people buying or planning, that would give that lifespan.
That's true. Okay.
Do we have numbers on if it actually costs us 2 times the amount to bury somebody? Like when it comes, say if we, on average, we do, like, do we have those numbers someplace saying that this is how much overtime? Because I'm not going to make money on burying somebody on Saturday. So do we have those numbers saying, hey, this is actually what's going to cost us for overtime and that kind of stuff? Because we have our fee schedule and everything like that, and we know what we pay our employees. So do we have a number in there saying, hey, it's going to cost us twice as much to bury somebody on a Saturday? I get like an extra fee is great. Like I think that's normal as I'm looking at it as well. But does it honestly cost us twice as much to pay somebody?
It's a great question. It could be less if you choose to. I mean, it's that question of, and you're speaking from a very real experience, personal life. The question is.
But also the numbers are real, right? Like that's another thing.
Yeah.
Aside from the
Real
person.
quick.
So for example,
Double is $700. If you have to have 3 employees and they're only making $25 an hour without the burden of insurance and tax and everything else, time and a half is $75 an hour, so $112. If they're there for just 6 hours, we're $675,
Yeah,
and
that's
we
what I
haven't
wanted
even
to
paid
hear.
taxes.
That's what I wanted to hear.
And that's,
So we'll
that's.
lose money on a double.
That's
Okay.
for the resident rate, on the non-resident rate, so.
I should have done that before I came.
Well,
in.
and we didn't factor in the cost of equipment and other things and, hours and, it's complicated.
totally helps.
Moneymaker for us. It's-
It appears to be
It does. That's what I'm saying. That's why I wanted to make
industry
sure.
standard number.
So I want to make sure we talked about it and just, thank you.
Yeah.
That answers my question.
On that Saturday exception, I think we should bring that back. So there's a couple things. As staff, we act in a ministerial role, which means we implement the policy of the city council. If we're drafting a policy for that, we're basically acting as the city council, which we shouldn't do. And also, we want somewhat of a specific exception because otherwise Colton is going to get, we're going to be critical of saying that he's being arbitrary and capricious. So we have to have sufficient standards to protect him as well.
Might just be safe for the first 2 years, it's no.
But we could come back really easily, just the next council meeting, with that policy. That's an easy change, doesn't require any.
If it's easy, come back then.
Yeah.
And
Well,
then we can just,
I don't want to write it up here.
we can
no,
vote on
no.
this now, and then he can come back with
The direction.
Wouldn't have to go to planning again for new code change?
No, that's only for Title 19. This is just a
Okay.
code amendment.
It's just gonna make the exceptions, yeah.
I would say it's good to come back because like Mark acts in that capacity in a number of administrative items, like, and things, and like our planning director and others. So I think we can accomplish the same thing and make it administrative exceptions.
Well, this is a policy and it's a legislative decision, so.
Well, right,
Mark
but
can't
we
make
create
that.
a policy that allows for administrative exceptions.
Oh, yes, that's what I'm recommending, yeah.
Okay.
But right now, we're gonna make the motion with no Saturday, and then they're gonna come back and, okay.
Can I just say one more shout out really, because I have been struggling with this and Jim did talk to me for probably an hour last night and really, he gave me most of this information, but I wanted to make sure it was clear and everybody heard it and stuff like that, so I do.
That's great.
I appreciate the time.
Yeah.
Okay, any other thoughts, Colton, before I take a motion? Nope. Okay, I will entertain a motion.
We're not talking about waiting for 2 years, right, to come back?
No,
for this
we're
policy?
saying,
We're not saying they can't come back within 2 years. They can come back in 6
We
months.
will review
We can
it.
come back in 2 months if Colton thinks we need to, right?
Well, but I think what we're talking about is the administrative exception, whatever I say.
Yeah, we're saying,
That code to
Approval,
it.
like, and it could be in 2 weeks if you're ready to
yeah,
go.
we're saying no to Saturdays for 2 years, but he'll bring back that.
Very soon, like within a month.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure
Oh,
that,
oh, I'm following.
Okay,
yeah, I just want to make sure that doesn't get buried. So what number are we on?
7.
I move that we approve business item 1, selecting
no, 7.
7.
I don't know why I said 1. I move that we approve business item 7, selecting option 1, that there is no Saturday, what do you call it? Saturday.
services.
Services, and directing staff to bring back some code to allow for exception-based allowances approved by the sexton in a future session.
And then 2 times the standard.
And relative to the fee schedule, we leave in the 2 times in the fee schedule.
Correct.
With that.
With the exception.
Perfect. Okay, I have a first from Councilman Wilden.
Second.
Second from Councilman Carn. Any further discussion?
Just to make a point, Lance, you did say there's no exceptions on this, the 2 times the standard rate.
Right, I meant the
So we
exception.
are approving the 2 times standard
Not doing
rate, but currently no
I just wanted to-
exceptions.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure because
Saturday.
he said that, so
We're voting
point
on
of
it.
clarification.
He's going to bring that back in a few weeks.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Barton?
Aye.
Comber?
Aye.
Wilden?
Aye.
Carn?
Aye.
Wadman?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. We do have a work session. We'll take a short recess. Mark?
A quick clarifying question. We'll float the code to you probably in the next day or 2 on this, the code change. If you're okay, we'll just put that on as a consent item for the amendment to the cemetery burial exception that you've just described. Are you comfortable with that as a?
As long as there's no concerns, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Great. Perfect. Okay, we'll take a short recess. Okay, we'll get the meeting going again. We're back in our work session at 8:11 PM. First work session tonight is the Fire Department Strategic Plan.
Mayor and council, it is both an honor and a privilege to be here in front of you to discuss some of the future needs and direction that we have felt that we need to have some discussion on with respect to the growth and development of the department. This is a culmination of quite a bit of work. This is now several years, 2 or 3, I believe it is. Councilman McComber and Barton had an opportunity when they were our liaisons to sit in on part of this. So we went through a process. We realized that much of what we discovered in this process were things that we kind of already knew. But sometimes it's better if the preacher is from another congregation, so to speak. And so we went out, we put had a discussion with a couple of groups that did this. We selected a company that's primarily made up of former fire service personnel, mainly at the chief level, that come in and do an analysis. That company was, I know them as ESCI, I don't know, they're Emergency Services Consulting International. That's why we call it ESCI. It's a long one. But we brought them in to help do another critical look at our organization and help provide some direction. So we have, whoops, what are we on here? So our objectives tonight, we're going to look at, and you have it in your Dropbox, all of the information is in there. We're going to get into, we'll fly through it fairly quickly, and feel free to ask questions whenever you would like. But I'm going to turn the time over here in a minute to Chief Johnson to go through some of the nuts and bolts of our strategic plan. And then we also want to kind of review our proposed time frame for the discussion that we've had with respect to our third station. So in dealing with the SCI, we put a scope of work out for them to look at, and that was to evaluate our current service, identify service gaps, critical issues, forecast growth, and service demands, and then also make some recommendations to us. In that process, we went through extensive data review. We went through, they actually did site tours, and they did interviews of staff. And again, that's when we had the opportunity for our liaisons to come in and be a part of that. And with respect to the data, it's interesting, and I noted it in the executive summary that I provided with the report. ESCI goes through a process. They use a national database, and the data that they were actually polling or providing for the city of Saratoga Springs was actually behind the numbers that we have as far as a population. We had a rather robust discussion, I'll call it, in fact, about their methodology in pulling some of that data, and we let them know that it didn't match what we currently need and serve. And so going through that, we were able to come up with some findings. And those findings are that we will be doubling our emergency incidents over the next 5 years, which kind of put that into context. That puts us in line with the current service that South Jordan provides with respect to call volume. And they are actually having plans and discussions for their 5th station. And so one of the things that we just haven't been able to actually properly predict is the growth. We've used a number of projected, from year to year, projected numbers. And as a city, we have outperformed with the growth. ESCI uses a process that was kind of comparing us to cities of similar size, but one of the things that they did not take into account and had a little difficulty in kind of wrapping their mind around that is we have not had 100 years of a city government or an establishment to be able to provide those needs. I mean, it has been, just, we have been taxed out since, with respect to speed, we've been tacked out since the city was formed. For 25 years, we have been just dealing with explosive growth, and we've done our best to try to keep up with some of that. One of the things that we face now is the issue of dealing with resources that are available to us with respect to personnel, the amount of time it takes. It's now approaching almost 3 years to build an engine. We're at 2 years for an ambulance. And so it's requiring effort of us to be a little bit more committed to making some of those decisions and moving forward with some of those items that we need.
Chief, real quick too, just to, what they commented when we were doing the presentation, because remember, I even was double in the next 5 years. If you remember, my reaction was like, whoa, because we're not going to double the number of houses, but our infrastructure, our homes are aging. And so where we actually had the benefit early on, where we had all these newer homes, and so newer homes tend to not have as many fire issues. Now we're dealing with older homes and people changing things, changing lights, which, where you can have more home fires. And then also our population, when I first started on the council, what was it, Jim, like 41 years old or something, like some super young number, where now our age demographic is going up, and so more incidences for ambulance and aged people. So the doubling isn't just because we're going to double the number of houses in Saratoga Springs. It's so many other components that go into this calculation. So I just wanted to point that out. Like, that's what really the doubling of emergency incidents is, because of all these.
16 years ago, we didn't have a 55-plus community.
And we have 3 now.
Yeah.
And so I think that I just wanted to point out some of these things that are contributing to that. It wasn't just rooftops.
Correct.
Plus, we also have more surface area too. I mean, there's more exposed, as we build out, there's more exposure to the elements, and there's more what I call surface area, meaning instead of a small community, now you got communities that are all over that if there's a fire that starts up, it can affect more.
Yeah, and Chief Johnson will get into some of those particulars with respect to that, but I appreciate your noting that, our demographics are shifting. When I was appointed fire chief in 2011, I think kind of the oldest age of our community is around, of a member of our community is in their 60s.
That was the oldest person.
Yeah, the oldest, and they're now approaching 80.
Yeah.
And so their needs are changing as well. So I'm going to, with that, I'll turn this over to Chief Johnson to go through our strategic plan. And again, feel free to ask questions if you have any.
Thank you, Chief. So the scope and purpose of the plan is to take the ESCI evaluation, respond to some of their recommendations, and give a guiding document and a framework for the services that we provide. And a shared vision, and just inform the council so that they can make choices and decisions with as much information as we have. Aims to address the critical issues and close service gaps over a short period of time, 3 to 5 years. Align services with best practices and future demands. We do note in here, and we wanted the council to know that we know this, is that this is not a policy document. This is, again, information to allow during policy sessions over the next 5 years to help maybe guide some decisions and have some discussions. This wasn't just, the ESCI study, or Chief Campbell and I meeting with Mark and Owen and coming up with this plan, is that we used a number of reference documents and standards. Some of those things were OSHA and some of the standards that relate to firefighter safety. Utah's Fire Service Certification Council and their certification requirements, training standards. And the Utah Bureau of EMS, they establish licensure requirements for our agency. And so we factored those into this plan as well. There are some other guiding standards that aren't rules or regulations by any means, but definitely allow us to analyze business best practices, and that's ISO and NFPA. NFPA is the National Fire Protection Association, and they have a number of best practices, and this one is related to staffing. Then ISO is Insurance Services Office, and they apply a public protection classification rating to all the cities. This is done automatically on a 10-year basis, and cities can call for an earlier evaluation if desire. But that public protection classification influences insurance premium costs on our homeowners and our businesses. We also looked at historical plans that the city had been involved with for planning for emergency services, facilities, fire stations, the general plan. These plans we looked at as well to align where we could, in addition to that ESCI evaluation that Chief spoke of. You know our mission is to protect life and property, and the varied services, both emergent and non-emergent, that we provide. But and you know this, but our personnel are far more than firefighters. They are professional problem solvers. As note, we had a 16-year-old stuck in an infant swing at one of our public parks. Sorry, Jeremy, we had to cut that up. I don't know where he went, but those are the types of things that we see on a daily basis when people don't understand or don't know how to solve an issue, is that these personnel are hyper-motivated. And Chief and I have always felt really fortunate to work for the individuals that serve our city. They're hyper-focused on fulfilling their oath, and they're fantastic, fantastic people. When we looked at that ESCI analysis, is what you guys could see is it's about 100 pages. It covers very thoroughly and in depth every aspect of the service that we provide. It looked at internal policies, procedures, administrative rules, and things that we do, far as training, fleet, equipment. It looked at facilities, looked at dispatch, looked at some of our emergency planning for the city, and they make some summary recommendations based upon that 100-page analysis. But we wanted to summarize some of the critical points in our strategic plan and bring some context to how those things, why those things are the way they are because of our unique city. One of those things is incident volume. Councilman McCumber was talking about this a moment ago with Chief, is that we see about 11.6 annual growth in our incident volume. That is not what we see in our population volume. But because of the diversity in our community, more commercial, retirement homes, the types of recreation that's occurring, some of our population is now aging. In addition to our population growth, drives up that incident volume. The forecast for the next 5 years is doubling, which puts us right now, this year we'll run about 3,400 calls, and in 5 years we'll be right around 6,800 calls, if that is accurate to our growth. Some of the staffing
And to your
challenges.
point, you've always underestimated that because we've actually outpaced all of your previous predictions, and you're being conservative, which I appreciate, but I just want to make sure that we point out that you've always been conservative and we've outpaced constantly.
Well, that's one thing that as we were doing our review, most of our plans and outside analysis, just like ESCI, they underestimate it, right? Is that they have a hard time wrapping their head around that rapid growth. There are other communities that grow like we do, maybe not at the exact rate, but there are other fast-growing communities in Utah, and we did also, part of our
Long and
analysis.
skinny, they're round.
That is true. And with that, even though it's hard to position facilities in the shape of city that we have for emergency services, there's also benefit to it that we could just line them up, put them right down the middle of the city, and east and west, our response times can be fairly small. But staffing challenges, ambulance personnel's availability for fire apparatus. So historically, we've tried to be as efficient as possible with our personnel, and they're cross-trained. And so our fire apparatus are dependent upon our EMS personnel to staff as the firefighters on the fire apparatus. And as those ambulances become more busy, that staffing isn't always available on that fire apparatus. And there's some regulations that we have to meet to safely provide that service, and that's called the 2 in, 2 out. So whenever 2 personnel are in a dangerous area, they have to have 2 people out to back them up and or provide rescue for those individuals. And so there's a number of ways operationally we try to achieve that when we're short-staffed, but ultimately the goal is to assign 4 people to a fire apparatus.
With this incident volume and all these, is this including our transports?
It is, yep. We're about 65% EMS calls, and the remainder are fire, rescue, hazmat, car accidents, those types of things.
Chief, is that,
For the people here in the audience, when I'm talking about transfers is when someone's in a hospital here, we need to transfer them to an emergency room like Provo or American Fork. We have contracts with local to move them, and so it actually helps cover our costs.
And that accounts for about 800 of our calls last year.
But these numbers include that, though?
Yes, yes.
is the OSHA 2 in, 2 out a OSHA mandate or is it a recommendation?
It is. It's a mandate. There's not an option. And historically, when we have an ambulance and a fire truck both available, partnered together, that's been easy to meet. But again, as those ambulances become more busy and they're not as available as they historically were.
And even our neighbors are busier for mutual aid. They've got growth too. Eagle Mountain is growing just as fast as we are, and so it's hard for them to help with mutual aid and us with them as well. So everyone's getting stretched thin.
Yeah.
And
response times is another factor, and we'll talk about a couple of reasons why this one has grown so rapidly in the last couple of years. Right now, our response times are 10 minutes, 31 seconds at the 90th percentile. What that means is that 90% of our calls are responded to within 10 minutes and 31 seconds. The goal is, or the industry best practice is 5 minutes, 20 seconds.
We're almost twice it.
And historically, we weren't always that, right? As historically, we were closer to the 7-minute mark. Over the last several years, we've seen central growth in our city. Historically, our 2 stations were kind of in the very north, where most of our population center was around our north station, and our population center was around our south station with the big green area between the 2. Response times were fairly small. And as our center of our city has grown, Mount Saratoga, North Shore, Wander, those distances.
Beacon Point.
Yeah, we spoke about that today.
Farms.
Those distances are just further. And that, even though there are ways that we can streamline and shorten emergency response times through some planning processes, and but ultimately, distance plays the biggest role in response times.
I mean, we're talking life and death in a lot of these situations too. And
so those target times are created based upon research for survivability, and things like the American Heart Association establishes the best time frame to get there for survivability. The same thing with fire growth is that if fire isn't managed within a period of time, even if the idea might be just one home, is that if we exceed a certain period of time, it's likely that multiple homes or neighborhoods could be at risk.
Which is, I mean, we did have a moment of silence for the police officers, which I'm the one who recommended it to the mayor, but we've seen in the news home fires and spreading in neighborhoods and firefighters putting themselves at risk. And when we don't get there fast enough, we're also putting our firefighters at risk, because now the fire is 10 times or 15 times more an impact on the home, where if they can get there quicker, they could have handled the fire when it was much smaller and much safer for them. So these are the kinds of things that I've always been concerned about, like with when police chief asks for additional resources, I've always been open to that, because it's safety issues, it's making sure they have backup, and the same thing with the 2 in and 2 out. But more importantly too, with this time response, this is very concerning to me, because I remember at 7 minutes, you guys were like, Chief, you'd always say, not ideal, but we can work this. This is the extreme. And I'm seeing Shelley here, because I remember we even talked about, because we had really serious conversations about, is 7 minutes okay? And we were given the facts that was okay. So we kept with 2 stations, and we grew. We put the apartments in the second station. I think you were actually proud of that. But 10 minutes is very concerning to me, and because that is a safety thing.
Chief, sorry, Michael.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, do we see traffic? Does it a time of day, these incidents, the response time, is it in response? Because traffic, obviously, everybody in Saratoga is, that's a priority, but does that affect your response time too? And
sure, congestion can affect our response time, but when you look at it, we have a model that will show you that regardless of traffic, those response times are longer just because of distance.
Okay.
Two other things that we pulled out of that we wanted to maybe just note is, one is mutual aid dependency. As you can see, over the last couple of years, that has increased to where we are receiving far more than we're giving. And ideally, we want that to be as balanced with our neighboring cities as possible. And so some of that change is due to other cities adding facilities, stations, and personnel to handle more of their own emergency incidents, and we're remaining a little bit dependent upon them.
So your single incidence has doubled in the last 4 years, but
So-
your 3 and above
Yes.
quadrupled or quintupled.
These are
So,
concurrent incidents.
Concurrent incidents or overlapping incidents, we call them as well, is where it says single incident, that means a single incident overlapping on an initial incident.
Right, exactly.
That's actually 2 incidents occurring simultaneously. So when you see last year in 949 concurrent incidents, that's our 2 stations managing 2 incidents simultaneously at
And that can
949
affect your
times.
Like a
response time
home
too,
call
right?
and an accident call.
Correct.
And that can affect your response time, because if you have your group going out,
Does.
then somebody further away has to come and compensate for that.
Or
right?
another city.
Right, right. Yeah.
Or even a station that's supporting another station in a different zone, right? If the south station's zone and they're responding south, that increases time.
Okay.
But you can see kind of where these mutual aid numbers, and when we start to get into 2 and 3 concurrent incidents, those numbers start to line up. Is that we're hitting those 2 and 3 concurrent incidents, we're dependent on some mutual aid help.
And that's a cost too to the city, right? Because if we
No, mutual aid we don't pay.
don't pay for, okay.
Yeah, we have fantastic partnerships and agreements with our
There's
neighbors.
for many years, we were mutual aid, and it was the opposite. So a lot of this mutual aid is Eagle Mountain, and
Okay.
obviously Lehigh. But for many years, I mean, Chief, we were helping them. And then police, we have the same thing, right, where we,
Yeah.
So some context to some of what we figured were the critical points from the ESCI evaluation and what we wanted to address. And based upon that, we created a plan that identified these strategic goals. 1 is improve response times. 2 is meet effective and safe staffing levels. Provide consistent critical care transfer staffing. Balance mutual aid. Improve our ISO rating and enhance administrative operations. We took all of the ESCI recommendations and integrated them with some of our own ideas based upon our unique city. And we broke it down into areas of strategic focus. And we have 6 of those areas. And in the strategic plan, you'll see there's 42 objectives in that. What we're just going to do is highlight a few of those objectives that we see happening over the years that the plan is implemented. But we're not going to cover all 42 objectives. Many of those objectives don't always have costs related to them. They're administrative management improvements and process improvements. But some of the things that we highlight here over these 3 to 5 years do have costs associated. In year 1 is adding a 3rd ambulance. This will impact a reduction in our mutual aid immediately when that's added. Add 1 additional firefighter to each fire apparatus to address some of the potential safety operational issues with short staffing on fire apparatus. Add a critical care paramedic. Currently, we only have 1 per platoon. And one of the issues that we're running into is when those individuals are sick, they have time off or injured or have training, is that service is impacted. And so by adding a second one to that unit, that allows us a couple of things. 1 is to provide that service consistently, but also it allows us to use that unit to respond with ambulances to non-critical calls, what we call Alpha Bravo calls, leaving that fire apparatus in service in the neighborhood that they're in. It reduces wear and tear on the fire apparatus and keeps a response unit available in those neighborhoods. So we feel like that's a creative plan to, again, reduce wear and tear and make sure that there's units available. Complete a design and begin construction on a Station 3, improve dispatch processes, and implement firefighter health and wellness initiatives. That would be in year 1. Year 2 would be a completion of the Station 3 construction, promote and add personnel to staff the station, update service metrics, look at hiring a billing records and payroll clerk, implement leadership, succession plans, and mentoring. And then in year 4, look at the training captain and training facilities, fire inspector, and begin calling for a reevaluation of our ISO to see if we can get that dropped. And we believe that we can get it dropped from our current 4 to a 2.
So I just have a thought and just wanted to, this is a work session, so it's
Yeah.
to have a conversation. I mean, obviously the 10 minutes, and we know that the third station, I'm not sure if you've mentioned, I had to step out for a quick second, is probably going to be in the middle of the city, close to our public works area, potentially, is where that third station will be. It's not far from our new city hall that's going in. And I'm wondering if we don't delay too much and we can have one of the apparatus, maybe, during peak times when we know we have more calls or whatever, and then we can find space at City Hall, because we actually have a lot of extra space where maybe we can have some more coverage to reduce these times. I think we can be creative in the meantime. I'm not trying to say that you don't build out. I mean, I won't be here to help make those decisions, but we need to be creative and start looking at ways that we can create the coverage before we're actually there. Like we've done this for a long time. I mean, I've been working with Chief for a long time, and we've always been really creative when we had to be. And I think that there's an opportunity, because really we're only 3 blocks away from where you're going to have your station with the new city hall. And so maybe there's something we can do to help with coverage. I mean, there's not the apartments and everything, so I understand it could be an inconvenience, but at the same time, just thinking of those types of things. And then also, just to Lance and Audrey, when they're looking at these FTEs, just to help you understand, they have to staff for 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
And so that's why the FTE is higher. So when you see 3, that's really 1 24-hour shift.
Yeah.
8 hours per person. So they're not trying to build this huge staff. They're really trying to just create
Coverage.
1 24-hour coverage is 3 FTE. But then when you're also looking at the ambulance, you also do get some revenue recovery with these transfers. And so when they present the budget, they'll show you some of the revenue returns that you'll be able to make. So you'll be able to help make these as educated decisions. And 2 of the other people in the audience will be up here, so that information is to whoever wins those other 2 seats in November. But those are the kinds of things that when you're looking at these, it's not just pure cost. There are some revenues that come in as well.
Well, and the one thing that I do see up here is we have staff for a 3rd ambulance, and we just saw a table with multiple incidents, right? So that would cover a little bit of it, but we'd still have, I mean, you had 4 or 5 incidents.
It would help reduce the mutual aid quite a bit.
The mutual incidents.
So I mean, just one last thing too is the mutual aid with Eagle Mountain is a lot of it. I mean, they did go to the Unified Fire Authority in 2011 when we were looking at hiring chief. We did tours, we looked at it, and we really felt it was important for Saratoga Springs to have our own fire department, because the UFA creates a separate taxing entity, and it is a huge tax burden. So when Eagle Mountain likes to brag that they have a lower tax rate than us, it's bullshit. And I don't care anymore, I can cuss now from the, but it's bullshit, because they don't include the UFA in their tax base, because it's a separate taxing entity that they don't have control over, and it is a hell of a lot of money that they're paying. And I just want to say that thank you, Chief Campbell, for all of your hard work, that you've been able to grow our department efficiently and responsibly. I'm a little bit emotional because he's retiring soon, so.
I appreciate that. I just wanted to talk a little bit just on the 3rd ambulance. This will allow us, again, that more controlled, structured growth, but will actually allow us to address an immediate need. One of the things that we've been kind of kicking around is kind of peak staffing or having something along those lines with this 3rd ambulance that could assist in that interfacility transports, as you had mentioned. Again, we have a freestanding ER, so the patient goes in there, whether we transport them or they walk in, they address those immediate needs of that individual, stabilize them. But if they're admitted, we have a contract. Again, there's no additional cost to the patient with respect to that. From our standpoint, it's a contract with the hospital. But that's a responsibility that we have of then having to transfer that patient from Saratoga Springs to American Fork. You know, possibly if it was a trauma patient, they'll either go to IMC or Utah Valley. And so there is a fairly large turnaround time for us to be able to, you know, we're talking an hour and a half to 2 hours.
That's why when you see our ambulance on I-15, it's not they're on a joyride. They've actually come back. And then just for the future council as well, if we don't stay on top of that, we will lose those contracts to Gold, to private entities who have private ambulances. When you're in Provo, you don't see Provo, you see
Gold,
the Gold ambulances and all these other companies. And this is something that we can't have happen here. We need to make sure that we retain that kind of.
Which are for profit.
That opportunity. It's a revenue
Blue Cross are
opportunity.
for
It's not a profit, but it's a revenue stream, and it helps offset some of our costs, so.
I have a question. Go ahead, Lance.
I was going to say, so if we're doing one in transit, we have 2 ambulances now, right? So if we have one in transit, we're kind of exposed a little bit, right, when we do that? Is that true, or?
We're down to 1 ambulance.
Exactly,
Correct.
okay.
One ambulance with mutual aid.
Right.
Okay.
So that.
We haven't gotten to the slide with all the decimals on it yet.
Yes, sir.
We're going to get there.
So
But
we are.
can you tell me, when we go from an ISO 4 to a 2, what that could potentially do for homeowners insurance premiums in our city?
It varies greatly. Different insurance companies value that PPC rating differently. And so it's hard for me to say exactly, but homeowners can ask their insurance companies, if we currently have an ISO in our city of 4, if I reduced it to a 2, what would that mean for me? Where we see the biggest value is in business insurance. And it's been about 10 years since I was a part of a project to research this, but it was about 30% change in their fire insurance premium for businesses.
So it'll be cheaper for businesses to operate here with this type of rating change.
Yes, most cities our size typically have, their objective is to have an ISO in the 2 or 3.
Okay.
Some of the, just quickly, Councilman McComber, we have had some discussions. Mark has some great ideas on how we can possibly position that 3rd ambulance or have an immediate response in that area of the city we're seeing longer response times before that 3rd station comes. So we are looking at some options for it.
That's great, thank you.
Long-term things we're just trying to keep an eye on outside of the short-term strategic plan is the 4th station. That's discussed a little bit in the ESCI evaluation. And as the south end of the city starts to develop, we'll look at how those road networks line up and where the best position for that facility might be. But that's just something on our long-range kind of keep an eye on. Additionally, with our 1200 North Station, our North Station, UDOT's master plans with Mountain View Corridor, Pioneer Crossing, and Corby Ride may affect the ease of that station to be able to service the community. That's something we'll continue to evaluate as those plans continue to develop. And then finally, long-term is at the end of our strategic period, we believe that we can probably hit a Class 2 rating in our ISO and to maintain that long-term. Because that, like an accordion, right, is that we start to grow now in the south, response time starts to go up again. To react to those things before they become an impact to that ISO rating could be important. This is what this theoretical staffing projection looks like with the implementation of the aspects of the strategic plan at the end of the period. This is the map with the models showing kind of the long response times within the city. The goal is to avoid the orange and the red areas. And in those areas, depending upon density and call volume, which you'll look in the ESCI or in the ESCI study, it has a number of maps that show this and where some of our hotspots are for call volume, and it is in that North Shore, eastern part of the city where we're anticipating that dropping that next station near the Public Works site. And then finally, in the very south end of the city is, again, those developments, plans start to come to fruition. That's where the 4th station would go, but possibly between the Mountain View Corridor expansion and Redwood Road, somewhere just west of Redwood Road in there. This is kind of a proposed timeline. We've already started having some internal discussions and planning far as pre-design. And our hope is to maybe continue with that into bringing an architect on between now and the council's next budget cycle so that we could have some actual dollars. Right now, we have a placeholder in there far as just based upon experience, what we feel like that the cost of that facility might be. But this would give the council some more exact numbers on square footage, cost per square footage, what that site plan might look like. And our hope is to have that done by December. And then, which if the council's supportive of us continuing to move forward with this design and construction, a schematic design would be done by late spring, construction documents by summer, bidding this next end of next summer, early fall, and construction 14 months, opening the station in January of 28. Again, this is a proposed timeframe for that. Again, each one of these steps dependent upon council approval. And then finally, the decimal chart, Councilman Karn.
So as you look at this, some of those numbers are impressive, without a doubt. But we've tried to do our best to break it down from year to year based on implementing this plan and giving you some information for you to make your decisions or the future council to be able to make some decisions. And in year two, obviously, there's a lot of zeros there with respect to our facilities. And so, but with that, it also includes the cost of apparatus and as well as, just below that's our fleet. With that is the facility that again, Chief Johnson had mentioned the accordion style. Again, because of the design of our city, we think that it would be much better for us or much cheaper for us to look at, as we build these facilities, to instead of saying we need to put another facility somewhere else, of being able to put more personnel in that one location. Again, our city is the shape that it is. We think that the station locations that we've identified, we think that will help us quite a distance into the future. We're not going to see, I don't believe we'll see, well, I'll take that back. There are things that have happened that I never even imagined. So I'll qualify that. But it's important that we have that flexibility to be able to do that. Instead of having to, again, acquire land and build a facility, we think that we'd be better off, again, building the facility with the possibility of expansion of personnel and apparatus.
Chief, so that 15 million is for the facility. That lead time, how long does it, do we have an estimate how long it would take to build that firehouse?
14 months, it's
About 14, yeah, it takes about 4.
So to get a fire truck, we're talking 3 years, right?
So, yeah, that is one of the things, and one of the benefits we have of the apparatus that we've been, or the company that we've been purchasing from. We can place an order without having to have any out-of-pocket expenses, so to speak. We're not required, or they don't require of us to pay any money until the chassis is built. Again, they're all hand-built, but when the chassis is built, then that apparatus goes on the line to continue its construction. But they don't require us to put any money down until that time.
And the timing is, we kind of want to time it so that the trucks are there when the station's there, right?
Correct.
Okay.
So, and I want to,
Okay.
yeah, I want to, I want to clarify a little bit, because year two looks really scary, but some of those expenses get amortized over a long period of time. We're not talking about a $20 million bill
You finance it.
in year two. However, just so people understand, if we're looking at the 3.4, the 3.8, the 4 million in years 3, 4, and 5, those are really personnel costs. over time.
Ongoing.
And we need to understand that the last time the city of Saratoga Springs raised property taxes was 17 years ago.
Right.
We collect about $5.4 million a year. We're talking about an additional 3.4 million, 3.8 million, 4 million.
Well, and
Can I help with that?
100% of our property tax goes towards public safety and doesn't even come close to covering it. We have to subsidize it with everything else.
And I'm not
This
suggesting.
year,
it's a-
this year, if we look at police and fire, we're spending $12 million, and we collected $5.8 million last year in property tax. This is a big number. If I could modify our thinking a little bit on this, because this is showing the expense but if you take that $15 million and assume that it would be roughly, just under $1.5 million in debt service payment, if we were to say issue a bond or something like that. And that's ballpark. It's not an exact science as far as math goes. But if we just took and rounded, year 3 to about $5 million, including that debt service payment, that's about what we'd start carrying out. Now, our fleet replacement, you see $1 million and you see $300,000, that buys us our ambulance and that buys some apparatus. But then we would probably need to carry out some fleet expenses of a couple $100,000 a year so that we could replace that in year 7, 7 through 10, depending on what that replacement cycle looks like. So we're talking big numbers. It's very doable, and we're not presenting this as if, this is fatalistic or anything like that, but it's big numbers, and this is a big commitment, but it's also, we've experienced so much growth in the last few years that it's kind of accelerated these plans for us a little bit. And so we've always been looking forward. It's just a question of now we're going to have to start, making some critical decisions in order to hit these timelines and paths.
I guess my point is, Mark, property taxes in our city, 5.8 last year. If we put the debt service in this is going to add an additional $5 million a year plus into our, our cost for our fire department, right?
Right.
So it's substantial.
Right. And I
That's
don't.
why we tell people to buy local, because then your sales tax helps cover these things. But one of the things too, I just want to point out is the conservative nature of the fire department, which I also appreciate, like the forward thinking, the boxes from the ambulance can be transferred to the next one so that we don't have to rebuild the box every time. We just have to maybe update some of the equipment inside it. But so a lot of things have been done to be creative, and I've always been very impressive with that. And as you continue to carry forward, if it's you or, I know that's not an official thing, but, that you continue to be that creative thinking to help the city be as conservative as possible. Because, we have a mindset of low property tax, low taxes in general in Saratoga Springs, just the nature of the electorate. But we also need to be realistic and understand that these things do cost and that they want to have double the response time or triple the response time, then they will be, if they push for that, then that will be the reality. But in reality, we need to get that down as close to the 5 minutes as possible.
Just to put it on public record too, we're coming, and I don't know if this is official, but I read that the drought is 130 years. It's been the driest summer. So if anything does happen, it could be catastrophic if we don't have the support and the time. So not that I'm saying that next year will be the same way, but we are getting drier, and it seems to be that's the trend. So
Yeah.
it's just a risk that we take if we don't. So.
I just want to say we've come a long ways from when Public Works and you shared a 3-bay garage, and the decision in January is the ambulance outside and the sewer truck inside, because we didn't know which we needed that night. We've come a long ways from having to coin toss, what was the emergency?
Our trailer transferred from the fire department, they had the trailer forever too, mobile home trailer.
And now it's moving to the cemetery next spring.
It's dying.
Final resting place.
No, it's moving there
it's
for
gonna be
office
used.
space for the.
Being resurrected.
It'll be resurrected. But I think, I know that we're almost finished here and stuff, but again, I just want to, this is probably the last time you'll be presenting in any major way, Chief, towards the city council. And I personally just, when we brought you on, I really wanted this fire department to be world-class. Jim and I talked about it. We wanted there to be pride in our fire department, and you brought that.
Yeah, thank you.
Really created a class act and really became a leader in the state. Every other city looks to you for advice and support. So
Yeah,
thank you.
it's been my honor. And obviously, we still want to maintain our commitment to safety, sustainability. We try to be creative. We try to come to you with, not just with problems, but we try to have some solutions to those things as well when we bring those to you. Based on the previous discussion prior to our taking the mic, I now know I have to schedule my death on a weekend so that I can make the Monday through Friday. So,
You could do that, so we don't
I
have.
can promise you that if the sexton denies you a Saturday meal,
It'll have
you hear from me, even not up at this dais, I will make it stink.
I am going to remain a citizen of this wonderful
You
community.
will. You're going to be able to.
I look forward to that. Mixed emotions, certainly. I've not ever retired before. I don't know what all of that means, but I'm excited for the
Your
growth.
wife really wants you to retire.
that
I just say that.
develop.
I've heard from her.
I'm excited for the potential for this organization to be able to continue to meet the needs of our community. And we turn it over to you to help guide and direct us based on that. Ultimately, it is your decision. So we respect that, but we want to help and counsel in any way we can.
Thank you, Chief.
Mayor and council, we don't need definitive action tonight, but we would like direction. And so if you go back a couple of slides, Kenny, to the red dots, the question is fundamentally, are we okay taking this first step, which is the pre-design, which means we do need to do a budget amendment for us to set some money aside for us to begin. We could hire the consultants, the architects, the design teams. We'd probably want to do a design build.
I think we need to move forward, going back to how we've budgeted in the city, 5-10-year lookout. I think this needs to start being reflected in the budget every year, starting now and going forward. I know it's not official direction until we're in a policy meeting, but I would like to see that come back.
Agreed. I'm okay with the budget amendment in the next month or two.
Okay, so we'll bring forward the budget amendment to begin the pre-bid process. We'll start working through that process. And obviously, as it's ready and as we move through this process, that will be the path that we'll start moving forward. As far as financing and other things, this will become the focus of us building this into the budget. As you know, we're just now going to have our in-person audit at the start of next month. And that also means that we're also kicking off next year's budget planning process. And so we will be building that in and we'll be bringing that back to you. And again, there's going to be a lot of work behind here, not just for the capital expenditures, but also for the ongoing expenses and how we're going to be able to balance that with the growing demands of our community.
So, Mayor, I struggled with this a little bit because I thought, when I looked at the number slide, I thought, man, this is a huge commitment that, moving forward, there'll be a new council next year, and we're putting a big commitment on potentially a new council, right? But we're elected to represent the people until this council's done, right? People talk about lame duck decisions. I don't believe that. We're elected to represent citizens today.
Till December 31st,
Until whatever that day is, right? And really, all we're committing to is pre-design, and I think it's absolutely responsible to do this and move forward.
Regardless of when they build it, they need a design.
Yeah.
Well,
So I'm totally in support.
Just to let you know, because of the understanding of, we realize the timing of, and the time it takes to build apparatus, we do have foothold of positions in line, if you will, that we will be able to acquire apparatus quicker than, if we were to place that order now, we'd be looking at 2.5 or 3 years before that engine arrived.
Kept your place in line.
We've kept a place in line so that when that decision is made, that can happen.
Which is our next engine to resign?
Our current engine, we're 3-4 years old now?
Will it go into a reserve status for us?
3 years, so it would. So it potentially would go into reserve status, and our current reserve engine, we could then sell off.
Sell off to somebody?
But,
Santa Claus.
yeah, so there is that. They do cost a lot, but they do last a fairly long time.
Okay.
Can I just quickly, I want to make a quick comment, and just the collaborative effort between Mark and Owen, fire department, our police department, like it's, you haven't seen anything like it until you've seen like the back end of like the collaboration between these two teams. And so just a big shout out to you guys and Mark and Owen about like, everybody knows how much work it is, but it just is with a city growing like this, it's an effort. It's a big effort, and that collaboration has to be there. It wouldn't work. So thank you to you guys and to Mark and Owen.
Thank you, and it's never a pleasure to have to bring this kind of information, but that is our reality. And again, we live in an amazing community, and I'll do whatever I can to continue to make sure that it remains. Thank you.
Thank you. And it sounds like Councilman Carn's setting it up to blame a tax increase on Councilman Wilden.
I just whispered over to him, he's still a lame duck.
And he's just a jerk. I don't know.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Last item on our agenda tonight is the Three Canyons work session.
She was great.
Ready to jump right in? We're ready. Thank you. Very much appreciate Mayor and council members and city staff for allowing us to be here today. We wanted to discuss the possibility of a PID being put on the Three Canyons project and talk about some next steps and benefits that we think that will bring to the project and ultimately to Saratoga Springs potentially.
Sorry to interrupt. Can we get your names
Yeah,
for the
Brad
record?
Holmes, I'm the president of Larry H. Miller Real Estate, and all of our real estate development. And then Benj Becker, who I'll introduce, is with Piper Sandler as well. So we're going to, we have slides, obviously. We'll go through some things. Please interrupt with questions, whatever we can do to answer any of that and try and make this a meaningful discussion. So I'll let Benj take the majority of what we do and introduce himself.
Thank you. Yep, Benj Becker, Piper Sandler. Good to be here.
Can I just give a quick shout out to Benj, because I've had so many questions about PIDs, and I think, where were you going on vacation? And I'm calling him and he's like, I might lose service. And then he'd call me back as soon as he got service back. And so this guy's committed. So I appreciate being here, just lasting the 3 hours as well. But no, and just answering those questions. And I know you're gonna answer some of them tonight as well, but he's committed to make sure people are aware of, have their questions answered. And even if he's in the middle of going on vacation and losing services, he's going. So thanks, Benj. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course, I appreciate that. All right, public infrastructure districts, just a quick overview here. Some of the key topics that I've picked here have been reiterated by numerous different cities and counties. To date, there are about 150 public infrastructure districts that have been formed in Utah. They've been formed all throughout the state, as far south as St. George and north as Garden City. They've been formed in rural areas like Kanab. They've been formed in bigger cities like Salt Lake City. They've been used in areas that support quick growth like Grantsville and Salem. And then they've been formed and used in cities that are a little bit more established and are looking for a very specific need for infrastructure. If you think of a PID, just really think of it's a financing district with defined boundaries. They are qualified, these districts, to issue bonds to finance public infrastructure improvements. Those bonds are paid by tax revenues and fees that are generated within the boundaries of the PID, and that is what's used to pay bonds. This is not revenue that's coming from any other part of the city or outside of the boundaries of this specific district. They are approved by cities, but once a district is approved, it becomes a standalone, separate financing district. There's no financial liability to the city. There's nothing on the city's books, no requirement for the city to step in and pay and cover any bonds. And they're used for really all types of development. You've seen them recently, maybe in Utah, for places like the Point of the Mountain, or for new housing developments in a variety of cities in Utah County, Salt Lake County, all throughout the state. Here are a couple just key questions that we hear, and I'll go over these quickly. And obviously, this is your work session. Would love to answer any questions as they come up. There is no city involvement following creation. There's, all the responsibility is borne by the district. Any tax collection, any issuance of the bonds, that is done through the parameters that the city sets in creating the district. Can taxes be raised on district residents? It's an absolute unequivocal no. Once the tax rate is established at creation by the city, you setting the maximum tax rate that can be established, that cannot be increased without 100% property owner approval. So if you were to go back in and try and convince people, as you know, that's not going to happen. What happens if the development is slow or does not materialize? That is a risk of bondholders. These are high-yield, non-investment grade bonds that institutional buyers purchase. This is not, there's no recourse back to the city. There's no ability to come back to the existing property owners. If I own one home in a development that's supposed to be 3,000 homes, I only pay the taxes for my own home, not for the unbuilt, remaining 2,000 plus. What happens to the district when the bonds are paid? The district expires and the added tax is removed. So these are typically 30-year bonds. Once the bonds are removed, the tax rate goes away and the district is extinguished. Who controls how the district is operated and how money is spent? It's heavily audited by the state. It's under the purview of the lieutenant governor. Every district has a district council, an auditor, an accounting firm. They're required to submit regular annual, oftentimes quarterly continuing disclosure reports, as well as an annual report to the lieutenant governor. They're required to meet open meetings laws. All of the funds are held by a trustee. They're only released upon approval by the board and a certification by an engineer certifying that these are qualified public infrastructure expenses. These bonds are tax exempt, meaning they're used for publicly related infrastructure. So if there is any use that is not tax exempt, it negates those bonds and those bonds become taxable, heavily penalized. And that's why you have an engineer, an auditor, accountants to keep that in place. How will residents know they live in a district? PIDs are strongly regulated with noticing requirements. Similar to an HOA, when you're shopping for a home and you see that you're within an HOA area and what are the fees for the HOA, the same is required of PIDs to provide notices at marketing and any transfer of property that is within a PID. And the creating entity, the city, can impose or require, when the district is created, additional noticing requirements.
I have one question. When you do close on your house, you know how they break it down, say this is your total payment? That PID would be included in that?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And we could actually require even more, like a form that would have to be
breakdown.
signed that says, that you're in this.
If I
The
could,
the PID's not, the potential PID would be included in the payment, but the PID is only levied when because the bonds could be taken out over time. Isn't that correct?
I'm not sure I totally understand the question, but yes.
You're not going to spend $30 million in one day one. You're going to pull money from the bond over time is what he's saying.
Yeah, the IRS will only allow you to issue what you can spend within a 3-year period.
Right.
But typically with these infrastructure projects, you've got initial upfront heavy infrastructure,
Right.
water tanks, roads, sewer. So oftentimes you'll impose the mill levy. It's on all of that, or a portion of that future growth. However you size that bond of what you can spend in that 3-year period.
Okay.
You could do it in tranches and say, we're going to spend 10 million now. We'll issue another 10 million in 5 years. You don't want to pay the extra interest costs if you're not going to spend it.
Right.
So you're.
if I could, I also want to point one thing out. Benj basically said, here's typically the terms that they've seen. Those terms are set by you as a council, and that's your involvement. Typically, we would propose that you would adopt some sort of a PID policy that would establish what those parameters are. So Benj mentioned 30 years. You could set it at 15. You could set it at 20. You could set it, at like an IFD payoff, which is at occupancy.
But then might as well do an IFD.
Right, I'm just saying you have a wide variety of policy options that you can choose to do. So just because it says 30 or just because it says XYZ, you have flexibility in how you want to set that up.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, Mark, because I think this is something I've talked to you about personally. You and I have talked about this. Is for me, I probably won't be involved too much in the long term of this, but I'm telling you, I'm just giving my opinion on PIDs. I personally have always said development should pay for development. You should never use taxpayer money to break down the barriers of development. I was frustrated when my own neighborhood, Wander, got a $3 million road because we built that road expecting it to be Class A office space buildings and stuff. And then they came back and changed it and put housing in. I never would have built Riverside Drive. I would never have approved that as one of 5 for a developer to be able to benefit from that huge road, right? But they did. And so I think that like we have the moratorium in the south because of the sewer. We haven't broken down those barriers to allow them to, we haven't paid city money to fix the sewer blockage so that they could build more homes. So PID is absolutely designed so that these people, if they move here, they're impacting the city. They're creating the additional costs in the city. So this PID, they should be paying for that impact. So that means building more of Mountain View Corridor Freeway. That means building an extra tank that Mark is adamant that we really need. Well, these are the kinds of things that will meet the needs of the city, but then also allow the development to happen. The residents would then decide if they're willing to pay the extra taxes. Just like in my neighborhood, I only pay $50 in HOA fees because I have the city doing my snow removal. I'm on a public street. The private streets, they pay $180 a month or something like that. And so because the HOA pays that, they knew that and they chose to move there. And so.
Full disclosure.
It's full disclosure. And so for me, I think a PID, I mean, I had a SID. We had service improvement districts forever. And the Saratoga Springs HOA, the street lighting, people paid an extra 75 cents or something like $1.50 a month. To this day, they're still paying it to have street lighting because the city couldn't afford street lighting at the time, and that development wanted to come, and so they put that in. So I think that from a PID perspective, now this is the thing I told Mark is, we either, as a city, and I'm looking at Lance and Audrey a lot right now, and Chris as the future chair of the council, but we either as a city have Mark help us create a policy and do what we think is best for Saratoga Springs, or the state will do it. I promise you the state has been looking at this. Mark can confirm this, Owen can confirm this. State has looked at forcing these on cities. The governor called us out for not being good players with these kinds of developments, and this is a perfect example. And so I would rather have Mark with you, Audrey and Lance, and whoever else on the council, help to dictate what this looks like with working hand in hand with the Larry H. Miller Group and finding a common ground, a balance between the two initiatives. I don't think we're going to go to 10 years or 15 years. I would hope that you'd be reasonable 20 years potentially.
I'm assuming it'd be a smaller fee, right?
Well, the longer you hit,
Yes.
the interest rates are going to be better, just like a car, right, or anything. So I would rather you all who care about Saratoga Springs, and I'm looking at the people in the audience too, who are potentially going to be on here, that you would be the authors of what affects Saratoga Springs versus a bunch of bureaucrats and developers in Salt Lake City. And so I really strongly encourage you to look at these, and if you are running for office right now, you need to become an expert on PIDs. You need to be doing your homework. You should be studying this stuff because this is the future of Utah, with the state legislature being run by developers, and you either going to be able to get ahead of it and have Saratoga Springs be the lead, just like we did with metering, and then everyone else in the state has metering, and then we got refunded. We're going to be able to do the same thing here. Hopefully, you'll be able to look at this and say, let's be in the lead. And you have a person sitting here, Mark Christensen, is probably one of the smartest city managers / understanding of policy like this in not only the state of Utah, but I would say in the country, honestly. And his being able to see problems, see concerns, and bring those to your knowledge, it's going to be much better for you than inheriting something from the state. That it will be cookie cutter for Tremonton or Nephi or St. George and Saratoga Springs and Salt Lake City and Sandy. That's the worst thing that can happen, is try and pigeonhole the same model in every community versus really being able to design what's right for Saratoga Springs. I mean, infrastructure-wise, this isn't going to happen because we have our central location for our fire department, but this is a perfect example. You could, in the future, if a PID came up somewhere else where you could have a PID where they built the fire station Because the people, if Teguayo comes in and they build 5,000 more homes down there, they're requiring that fourth fire station. So why shouldn't they pay a bigger share? Why should they have to benefit from all the taxes that have been collected from all the residents from the years before? So I'm getting off my soapbox, but I just really want you to understand that PIDs are going to be here. They're already 120 or whatever you said, and there will be probably close to 500 in the next 10 years. Because this is the future, this is what's happening, and let's let Mark Christensen and the future council, along with Owen, be able to design something and a policy that you guys can have in place that will benefit not only the residents today, but for 30 years to come. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, Councilman Wilden.
Thanks for letting me go. I mean, I've read through the rest of the deck and I've reviewed PID several times over the years. So for me personally, I don't need to go through everything. I would say if we are going to consider a PID in the future, I think it would need to be for large developments only and developments that are contributing to the overall infrastructure of the city. And what
Ways and tanks and things, yeah.
Yeah, and then also like roads. So if the Larry H. Miller Group were able to work with the state to drag Mountain View Corridor to get funding all the way to your property, that's not Larry H. Miller paying for it, but getting the state and using your legislative influence to say, we have 70,000 residents out here, we want to add 3 times 4, what's that, 12,000 potential new residents. We don't have the capacity for that in our roads in the city, so the city is going to need help connecting Mountain View Corridor to your property. And if Larry H. Miller Group or another was able to help achieve that, that absolutely would be worth creating a PID. Creating a PID without bringing infrastructure that benefits traffic is just a mechanism for cheaper financing. That's what it is, because you get the tax-free interest rate. And, you know, there's other ways to do it through HOAs. Other developers have done that, but the interest rate's higher. So the real value of the PID is you can do cheaper financing that in hopes that you would pass it on to the residents, but the market dictates whatever the price of the home is.
Good point.
So for me, that's how I would say a PID policy needs to involve major infrastructure for the city, and it has to be a large development. And if it's just in isolation, we're lowering barriers just to build the roads within our stuff, and they're not bringing anything else, to me, it wouldn't be even worth a conversation.
I mean, 2 points to Councilman Wilden's. PIDs are always like in the name of affordable housing, which is a load of crap. If the home goes for 500,000, it's not going to go for 470 with 30,000 in the PID. It's going to go for 530,000.
Yeah, can I say that's kind of a misconception that the state has done a really good job, at least in my conversation, saying these weren't created. It was a misconception at first, but I think they've been trying to be very clear about this isn't necessarily for affordable.
No, it's
right?
not. That's
and
what I
I'm glad
want on
you're
the
making
record.
that clear. Yes, I'm
saying,
very glad.
record, this is a load of crap if it's for
But
affordable housing.
I was in the Utah League of Cities and Towns when that was passed. The state passed it as this helps
Yes.
affordable housing. And they continue to fly that
They
flag.
continue to say it. And it's
I've
not.
heard lots of people correct it, thankfully, but it's still out there that that's what it does.
The other thing is to the comment of the bad actor, that was the government making a comment based on falsehoods made by a developer about timing on this application. And we have corrected that with the governor's office, that those were misinformations.
So I've got a concern, and I'm trying to educate myself on this, but I had an interesting conversation with someone yesterday, and the people in Olympia Hills up by Harriman, which was a PID that was created, and Harriman essentially had to annex that community. They got their first PID bill, it was $900 a year. That can go up to $3,000 a year, depending on the bonds that are taken out. That is a massive increase on what someone's paying for a house. And this, I don't see how this attributes at all to affordable housing.
It doesn't. I don't think they're saying, I don't.
Want to make sure when you are setting up the policy for PIDs that you don't allow that kind of, obviously that was a bad job.
But I guess to my point is if a PID helps improve the quality for the overall city and you can bring your residents here without significantly increasing the burden on existing residents, meaning you're not dumping, 8,000, 9,000, I'm just making trips, whatever, a day in and out of roads that's barely like functioning right now, then that's definitely worth a consideration. It wouldn't be for like a very small HOA. We're only, what, 40% built out? So if we don't have a good policy like this, everyone could say, well, we built the park at Pocket Park, you know, set up a PID all over the city. That's not what you guys are doing, but that would be my standpoint. It's the betterment of the city. And I'm not
Projects,
suggesting you have to finance that road outside of your property, but you do have a lot of legislative influence, so use it to help us get this done for you and for the residents, and that would be a good partnership. Not just the roads within your side or inside of your development, because that does nothing for us other than add more traffic.
So clarification, on one of the slides, it says it cannot be increased without 100%.
The mill
Property owner.
levy cannot be increased.
The what?
The mill levy cannot be
Oh, okay.
increased. The mill levy that's set has to be voted on by 100% of the property owners.
Okay.
Am I correct on this?
Correct.
So the mill levy cannot be increased.
But the payment can.
Up to the mill levy.
Okay.
And the payment, if the interest rate's set at.
Right.
Yeah, Benj, can you address that for us? That concern that Chris shared?
Yeah, the interest rate is set at the time of the bond, so the payment is fixed. But yes, your taxes could go up because your assessed value increases, right?
Same as a property tax.
Well, property tax is not set off assessed value, though. Your certified rate will go down if your assessed value goes up.
In a public infrastructure district, you just set that mill, and that mill is flat. So that would be 0.003, and that's what you would set on day one, and that's what it'd be on day, 2,000 type.
So your property value goes up, your
Share of the loan
your
goes
share
up.
of the absolutely goes up.
Yeah, not your share of the loan, but yes.
Your payment goes up.
The amount
because
goes
your property
up.
value goes up.
As your property value goes up.
So it's fixed number, not like a property tax rate.
It's not subject to truth and taxation like your other city, school
Right.
district, county.
Right. So as my property value goes up, my certified rate goes down. Unless we as a body go through truth and taxation. With a PID, as your value goes up, your PID payment absolutely goes up with that as a percentage of it, with no truth in taxation. And
But
it can
is-
continue to go up every year as your value goes up.
So is that automated? I mean, does it go up
Well,
just
no,
by?
the county assessor sets your value.
Can I ask a clarifying question with Benj? Because I
Every
think you're hitting on something that I want Benj to respond to.
I think it goes up every year.
Fundamentally, let's hypothetically say you take out $10,000 on a home. Even though the mill levy goes up, are they paying more than that $10,000? So for example, if you were to say it's going to be $10,000 assessment per home, are you going off of value or are you going off of per unit?
I'm not sure I still understand, but you're going.
They're going to pay.
So fundamentally, what I'm getting at, Benj, is if the value of the home goes up and the mill levy stays the same, do they pay off their obligation quicker? Or do they end up paying substantially more into the kitty of potential revenue?
Yeah, the overall bond payment does not increase. There's more revenue coming in because home prices have increased. There's more revenue coming into the bond to pay off the bond quicker. So it's not like there's then just excess money that goes off to the developer.
That's the point I wanted you to get to, which is fundamentally, if you set a value, they would only pay their proportionate share of that debt, even though their mill levy goes up. Or
Exactly.
even though their value goes up, they're paying off their debt faster.
No.
But it wouldn't necessarily.
Bonds aren't structured to be paid off faster unless you're putting it into a structured fund or a sinking fund. That's not how it works.
These bonds are allowed, all these bonds are allowed to be called at a 5-year call provision, which allows you to restructure, refinance the bonds. In 5 years, the risk is substantially removed because, Larry H. Miller has put in a lot of the improvements. So then you'd come back in at a lower tax rate, a lower interest rate. That lower interest rate, just the same way when you refinance a house at better interest rates, reduces your payment, right? It allows for the home buyer then at that time to not have to pay 3 mils, but maybe 2 mils or 1.5 mils
So-
at the refinance.
If the bonds are for 30 years and Stephen buys the first home in your development and Michael buys the 1,000th home 5 years later, he's only going to pay on this bond for 25 years. He's going to pay more than he is for the same infrastructure.
Sure, but it's the same way moving into any development, you pay HOA fees for use of the swimming pool on day one, or if you move in on year 5 or year
Yeah.
20, you're enjoying the development, the amenities, you're using.
But I'm just saying, the bond is not equally distributed amongst all the homes. First in will pay more.
Yeah, Sure, I'll pay 30 years, but I will just pay off of my home. I won't pay off of however many other homes are in or not in.
But I could end up paying $12,000 over 30 years, and he pays $8,000.
Sure.
And then the bond's paid off.
Sure.
So it's not capped per unit. Like, for example, in an IFD, it would be set as X dollars per unit or something like that, and they pay on it until it's paid off. This is literally, first ones in will pay proportionately more than those down the road, and it's not on a per unit basis, it's based on their assessed value from day.
Sure.
But again, the same as an HOA, I mean, it's the exact same, except you never pay off an HOA, so that is there forever.
But that's kind of the difference between this and other funding structures is there's not a proportionate amount that's tied to that debt, that once it's paid off, they're free and clear. They're going to continue to contribute towards the overall debt, the duration of the debt being there. It's fundamentally, it's a different tool.
So financially, you don't want to buy into this neighborhood for 15 years. So the others pay the bulk of the debt.
Or you also, I mean, it's in any city, you move in early, you're gonna
Yeah.
pay for more.
You are.
You are.
I can get behind someone who lives there longer if they're enjoying the benefits of it.
Longer.
Yep,
Yeah.
they just, yep.
And they're also benefiting from the approved increased appraised
Depends
value
on,
of the home.
depends on what's in the PID.
So Benj, you said earlier that every 5 years you can prepay and restructure the debt. Can they issue additional debt at that time, or are they capped at, say, the value that the council sets in the parameters resolution, or
Depends on how
in the PID policy?
Depends on how the city is set up. It wouldn't, the PID policy might direct, they want to, but ultimately it'll be the governing documents that are individual for each PID to say, here's how we want to cap either the total debt, or typically it's cap the mill levy. So that you can allow the property to grow over time. Yes, that'll be set in the governing document.
So,
If I'm wrong, doesn't the state law say it has to be 100% of the service owners and registered owners through that? So in the future, if they want to levy more, they have to.
It has to be approved, yeah.
100% of the service owners and 50% of registered owners.
but the challenge with that is during the initial years of the debt issuance, they are the controlling voice. They fundamentally have the ability to control that. And so, refinancing and other things are things that they would then control as the sole owners of that property at that time.
Mark, this is exactly my argument, that you being involved in establishing the rules and the parameters, saying that they can increase, you know what I mean? Like, this is the bond levy limit, and that's why I'm not gonna repeat myself, but that's why it's so important that as a city, you guys are involved with this. And it's not left up to state developers, I call them state developers because they're not really, they're developers, dictating how that looks, so. Good luck.
So I don't need to go over the rest of these slides. I think, Councilmember Wilden, I think your point was well taken of, you've looked at this, seen this. I'm happy to talk about any more of the slides. I think one key consideration here is just understanding the mill levy. This is a current tax bill in Saratoga Springs. You can see the mills that you pay for Utah County, the school district. That's 0.008. We call that 8 mills. The majority of that, as you can see, is being paid to the school district. And then the county and the city are the other two, somewhat larger. Your water conservancy is pretty small. You can see in the black boxes there that most taxing areas in Utah have a composite rate somewhere between 6 and 14. St. George, kind of in that 5 and 6 range. You get some communities along the Wasatch Front that are already significantly higher than that. So people are moving to different communities and paying different tax rates without even being in a PID. Here are a couple of examples of current mill levies. This is where you're at, Saratoga Springs, in relation to some surrounding cities or other cities that are maybe more high-growth cities. So these are without PIDs. If I live in Harriman, I'm paying about 2.5 mills more than if I'm living in Saratoga Springs.
Do you know where Lehigh is?
So go back to that previous slide, Benj. I just want to point something out for the council here. You'll notice the Saratoga Springs portion of that tax rate, and you see what our levy is. It's incredibly low. And so fundamentally, this will create a different tax district amount because you'll have a new PID line added for that PID district. And so from our previous conversation, there's bills coming due. will these people be more or less likely to support future tax increases? And that's a theoretical, it's not a given, but a tax levy or a tax increase to fund basic services, because these people will likely be facing an even higher mill levy than the rest of the city. And so if it's going out for like geo bonds and things like that, we did a geo bond a few years ago for rec center. This is one of those things that as this gets distorted, and this is one project, we're 40% built out as a city. Imagine now dozens of these across the rest of the city. To Stephen's point of what that PID policy might look like, you're going to have substantially different rates all across the city. And from a theoretical perspective, just keep in mind that future tax increases or geo bonds or whatever, this will play out differently based on the communities that they live in, because those rates will vary based on the PID rate that gets adopted.
This is the same thing with our HOAs. I mean, we didn't pass a rec center because two of our largest HOAs had pools.
Yep, yep.
And so they were like, I mean, you look at the voting turnout, like, and where most likely the votes came from, and Saratoga Springs Development and others.
Because they had those in
I guess, I would just go back to what I said, is like, it does create some problems, but if there is a significant benefit to the city that you can help us resolve a problem that you potentially be creating, right? Or at least contributing to.
Not exacerbating, but participating.
Whatever, you know what I mean, like, it's late and I'm tired, but the point is helping resolve something that you'd be contributing to. I think it's worth looking at, because that's a real problem that we have as a city right now.
And then these residents are the ones contributing, then helping to pay for it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I won't, there's eligible improvements. I don't know what else, necessarily don't want to talk to you about some different proposed PID terms that might be considered in a PID policy and how you'd want to view setting that up. I think Larry H. Miller Company would love to work with you on a PID policy, and particularly an application for Three Canyons. I'll let Brad speak to that, but
As a council, where do you guys stand on having Mark start looking? I mean, we have a PID policy that he worked on before, but that we can start bringing forward. I mean, it's not going to be something that I probably would be voting on by the end, but what are your thoughts about having him at least start something?
Yeah. And
I think you should. I think it's sooner you get ahead of it and start working with.
I'd say, Michael, I mean, it's August, we could probably do it sooner rather than later, right?
Hopefully, yeah, I don't think you'll be gone.
Well, there's a lot of questions to be asked. For example, in one of our meetings, a number was thrown out. I don't know exactly what the policy parameters would need to look like, and so we'll have to work with them to.
So the policy that we would set would be completely independent of what they're asking and what they're trying to do.
Right, we can create our own policy.
It's our policy.
Absolutely, yeah. But we need to know, total years that you're willing to we'd need to know what amount they're looking for.
Well, let's start
what that
having
millie
those
looks
conversations.
like.
And I would rather you be writing this than, again, inherit this. And we'll obviously be working with one of the largest people requesting that PID and getting their insight, but to Chris's point, you don't have to put everything they want.
I do think we need to be independent of what qualifies as a significant benefit. Like, it doesn't matter what any developer is suggesting. We need to decide what benefit are they bringing to the overall community that we consider.
So having a PID policy, is that like, you meet zone and code, you get it? If we have a PID policy, does someone automatically get it?
No.
No.
It'd be like anything else.
But fundamentally, I think Stephen raises a very interesting question as to what's that level of public improvement that justifies your willingness to go forward with it.
Well, I think that's a council decision when it comes to us, depending on the project. Yep.
Absolutely. So.
Not something that we're going to quantify in.
For example, some of the terms that we've discussed in the past, and, the mayor was in our very first meeting with Larry H. Miller. Some of the things that we talked about early on was, the connection to Mountain View Corridor as a major transit route. Obviously, transportation is one of our residents' primary issues, and that's something the council's always been very, very passionate about. Other things, that we talked about early on was, conservation of the open space up above the development, making sure that it didn't turn into mining things.
Well, is this stuff that we would be putting in our PID policy?
Those are
Because
the-
I feel like these are different conversations.
Well, they're kind of the bigger philosophical questions of what's the public benefit that goes into your willingness to.
Right, but that's not our conversation. Our conversation
Yeah.
really needs to be about
Correct.
our PID policy, right? So what they're giving us is not actually part of what we're putting into our PID policy. Now, we're putting in there a significant
Right.
contribution. So for me, these are two separate conversations. Are we going to, let's talk about what we want in our PID policy, and then we can determine later on if what they're bringing to us
Meets that
criteria.
standard, yeah.
So you're combining them, but they're actually separate conversations.
I'm gonna have to, like, politely disagree a little bit, because we're talking about a policy of like what would put the parameters, and so if someone doesn't meet that, then they don't come forward.
Oh, 100%.
But if we don't put like some general things in there, and that's just up to the council, then that's like.
No, I'm saying not specific to the Three Canyons, specific to our city, right? So
Right,
if we
but
decide we want to put in roads and this and that, then yes.
Well, what Stephen's point is, and I'm just gonna, maybe if I say it, maybe you'll understand it a little bit differently, because I take it as, we're gonna put the parameters, what is considered a significant improvement to the city, and whether the PIN, when they bring their forward, then they
Meets
say,
that.
this is what we're doing, then the council has the parameters that says, here's what was established by our predecessors, and we agree that meets.
No, I was understanding it. I just felt like we are combining Three Canyons with the PID policy.
No.
And I don't want to do
Well, I
that.
just think that when we're writing the policy, it doesn't hurt to have one of the people.
An idea in mind of kind of what we
I think
want.
he was just using examples of like major open space, offsite open space, and preservation of non-mining area. That's a bad way to say it, or like off-site, transportation improvements.
It does somewhat relate to the overall approval, though, because they are asking for commitment in the annexation and development agreement to the PID. They want us to commit to that in advance,
The PID, right?
right, in the
Right.
development agreement.
So it'd be helpful to have a PID policy that they knew.
So it'll be part of the larger discussion, for sure,
Yeah.
where those other things, like Mark mentioned, can be brought up.
Let's get to work.
Well, I think, to Michael's point, we need to start the discussion. We've got the 800-pound elephant in the room that's asking, but I think back to the council needs to make our decision, and that probably needs to be a work session that's not focused to a development. It's focused on the broad city's
Yeah, that's what I'm
future.
saying. Yeah.
Can they be?
Needs to
here?
come back
Of
at another
course,
day.
They can be here and
They can
listen.
be here in the
We
audience.
need to have a
It'll be a general
conversation.
discussion.
But we need to have it.
But we still have 60% of the community to build.
We do.
And this fundamentally is going to be the first foray into this conversation. And we need to make sure that whatever happens today is, comparable.
For the next 30
So that-
years.
That's what I'm saying. Right now, tonight, the discussion keeps going back to Larry H. Miller and what they want.
And it's just really about a
And we
PID.
need a global,
Yeah.
this is Saratoga's policy. Can you meet it? If so, great. If you can't, there it is.
I mean, Mark, you know the writing's on the wall. Like, we need to get ahead, and if we can get ahead of this, then ours will then become almost the legislation down the road. And we've done it before. Let's do it again.
So I would say we just need to bring it back into a work session that's focused globally, not project specific.
And that's gotta start before 9 PM next time.
Okay,
I'm getting tired, man.
perfect. Thank you. Okay, Mark, closed session can wait.
Let's pass.
Okay, let's pass. I will adjourn the meeting.